Chapter 1542, Divine Rune City. Chapter 1542, Divine Rune City. A dark wind howled through the boundless land. Lin Ming soon left the dizzying spatial transmission and found himself in the center of a vast wilderness, knee-deep in grass. What surprised Lin Ming was that when they left it had been daytime, but here was a dark night, with a depressing gloom covering the world, hiding all light. This pitch-black environment immediately raised Lin Ming's guard. He spread out his sense and didn't discover any vicious beasts, only some other trial challengers that had come here with him and Xiao Moxian. Because the Azura Road was far too long, it took an exorbitant amount of energy to open a transmission channel from the outer Azura Road to the inner Azura Road. Thus they would only start the transmission array once dozens of people had gathered. The trial challengers that arrived here with Lin Ming rose up one after another. Without a word, many of them launched their movement techniques and flew away. Some people began discussing amongst themselves. They were clearly in groups and were discussing their next step after arriving here. The two that caught Lin Ming's eye was a young-looking man and woman not too far away. At this time, the man and woman had taken out a compass as if they were investigating something. Spiriters. Lin Ming's eyebrows slightly arched up. The skin of these two shined with a faintly shimmering light. This was a sign of the soul race. The body of the spiriters contained an extremely rich soul energy. If they didn't deliberately conceal the light they emitted, they would glow extremely beautifully. In the dark of night, they would be like enchanting illusions. This young spiriters pair had outstanding looks and their foundation was extremely solid. One could instantly sense they were geniuses amongst their generation. However, their cultivation wasn't too high. In Lin Ming's opinion, their cultivation was just enough to enter the Great Desolate, but it seemed a bit forced for them to come to the inner Azura Road. This was true even if they could jump ranks to fight. At this time, the compass in their hands lit up. The young man's face brightened and he happily said with a sound transmission, "Big sister, we're in luck this time. It seems that we were right when we thought that the transmission array to the inner Azura Road would bring us to a random location. Fortunately for us, we didn't land in some place with vicious beasts and our arrival area is also extremely safe and near Divine Rune City. If we hurry along we should be able to arrive in 3 days." From their words it was clear that these two spiriters youths were brother and sister. But at this moment, as the older sister heard her little brother speak, she humorously said, "What is so good about this place? Although we're near Divine Rune City there is still a wild mountain range separating us. With our strength, wanting to travel through that mountain range will be too difficult, and if we must go around it that will make our journey far longer and we might also encounter other dangers." The young spiriters girl said, her eyebrows pressed together in a frown. Their cultivation was indeed not high. Wanting to travel through the inner Azura Road was just barely manageable already. As the two of them were speaking, most of the other martial artists had flown away. The only ones remaining were Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, who had yet to leave. The young spiriters girl looked over at Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian for a while. Then, the light in her eyes changed and she greeted them. "Hey there, how do you do?" Lin Ming looked back at the young spiriters girl, nodding his head in response. "Do you two not know where you want to go?" The trial challengers hadn't stayed in this grasslands for a long time. Those that knew where their destination was had already left, leaving only Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian idling about. From this, one could see that it was likely they were unfamiliar with the area and didn't know where to go. Lin Ming didn't reply. This was considered his tacit agreement. "May I ask, would you two like to accompany us to Divine Rune City?" Divine Rune City is the largest city in the surrounding area, and in terms of influence even an Empyrean Holy Land is inferior to Divine Rune City. If you go to Divine Rune City, whether it is supplies or missions, it is a very good place to go. Divine Rune City? Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. Was this related to divine runic technique? He remembered that just when he defeated Soulwhite and he was begging for his life, Soulwhite had said that he was skilled in alchemy and inscription, so taking him in as a slave would be far more useful than killing him. And in the Azura Road, a higher level inscription master wasn't called an inscription master but a divine runic master. In the divine realm that was ruled by humanity, when a martial artist reached an extremely high boundary, the inscription arts weren't much useful to them anymore. But this was different in the Azura Road. According to what Soul White had said, in the Azura Road, God runes and inscription could be combined together in a wondrous evolution, creating an entirely different form of inscription altogether. This was why divine runic masters and alchemists had an extremely high status in the Azura Road. And the best alchemists and divine runic masters in the Azura Road were all spiriters. This was because the spiriters all possessed a formidable soul force that made them perfectly suited to studying alchemy and divine runic technique. When this was combined with the long inheritance of the soul race, they were several times greater than all the other races in these two skills. This Divine Rune City, with its name, was most likely related to this. Divine Rune City is a city of divine runic masters? Lin Ming asked after thinking for a moment. That's right. Several 100 million years ago, many top divine runic masters of the Azura Road gathered together to form a divine runic association. At the time, the city they chose as their headquarters was quite ordinary, but as time passed and they took in more and more divine runic masters, growing all the while, they slowly had martial artists from all over coming to them, seeking help. After that, the city eventually developed into the current Divine Rune City. Not only are there divine runic masters but also a massive number of alchemists, refiners, and top masters from all around. Me and my little brother came to the inner Azura Road in order to go to Divine Rune City and experience the divine runic technique there and also participate in an assessment or competition of the Divine Runic Masters Association. If we're lucky, we might be able to apprentice ourselves to someone there. The young spiriters girl knew she was lacking in strength, so she thought to join with others. And if she were to accompany others, it was best to form trust with them. Thus she had told Lin Ming her goal in going to Divine Rune City. Lin Ming also understood why these two came to the inner Azura Road even if their cultivations were lacking. Lin Ming soon understood the whole city. This brother and sister believed that with their status as divine runic masters, they would be able to obtain sufficient protection in Divine Rune City. The only danger for them would be the road to Divine Rune City, thus they had invited Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian to travel together with them. As for Lin Ming, when he was at the outer Azura Road he had Soul White as a guide. But now that he was in the inner Azura Road, he was unfamiliar with the people and places here, and he didn't even know where he needed to go to obtain missions. If he could find a city and inquire into some information, then that would naturally be the best choice for him. And this Divine Rune City interested Lin Ming very much, because Lin Ming was also once an inscription master. In the past, when Lin Ming first stepped onto his road of martial arts, in his weakest moments he had relied on inscription technique to gain the training resources he needed to overcome this most difficult period. But after that, as Lin Ming's strength rose, his inscription technique could no longer follow the footsteps of his cultivation. Even so, Lin Ming always held a certain sentimental feeling towards inscription arts. He looked towards Xiao Moxian and said with a sound transmission, "What do you think about taking a trip to Divine Rune City?" Xiao Moxian said, "It's up to you. I'll follow where you go." "Then we're going to Divine Rune City," Lin Ming decided. Then, he agreed to the young spiriters girl's offer. The spiriters' siblings were overjoyed. Although they could faintly feel that Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian had relatively ordinary cultivations, they were still stronger than the two of them. Moreover, there was strength in numbers. With the four of them, crossing the wild mountain range shouldn't be a problem, and in a worst-case situation, if they met some sort of powerful vicious beast that they couldn't defeat, they would each still have a higher chance of surviving if they scattered and fled. "My name is Yu Liuxing and this is my little brother Yu Qifeng." The spiriters girl introduced herself and her brother. "I am Lin Ming and this is my wife Ji Xiana." Lin Ming didn't bother to hide his name. The Azura Road was far too large and there were also too many duplicate names. Moreover, he had already killed Tian Mingzi and Naki, and the place where they died was in the extremely isolated tomb of Bai Qi. All of this had been meticulously cleaned up by Lin Ming so that no one would know about it, thus Lin Ming didn't fear anyone discovering his true identity. Lin Ming had only casually introduced her, but Xiao Moxian felt a bit warmer as she heard this. Her cheeks flushed a little. In truth, she wasn't really considered Lin Ming's wife, and although the two of them had made love and dual cultivated, they had never held a marriage ceremony and the two of them were destined to part ways in the future. To describe their relationship as lovers was much more appropriate. Along the way, Lin Ming continued chatting with Yu Liuxing, gaining a much higher understanding of Divine Rune City. In the city, all divine runic masters were divided into different ranks depending on their attainments in the divine runic arts. Every higher level required tests, and there was also a corresponding competition. As for the siblings, they were both geniuses in divine runic arts. Their goal in going to Divine Rune City, besides apprenticing themselves to someone, was also to compete in the many competitions. The prizes for these competitions were quite generous. As they spoke, Yu Chifeng discovered that Lin Ming had some original opinions into divine runic arts. This surprised him. He asked, "Big brother Lin Ming, do you understand the divine runic arts?" Lin Ming was 10 years older than Yu Chifeng, so Yu Chifeng had referred to Lin Ming as big brother. Lin Ming smiled, "Barely. But, what I understand is inscription technique, and it's just a little. It's not comparable at all to your divine runic arts." Lin Ming's understandings of inscription technique had come from the soul fragments in the magic cube. And in the past, the people that were killed by Mo Eversnow and had their souls sucked into the magic cube couldn't be considered much anyway. They were all Tian Ming's subordinates, and their cultivations were divine lords or holy lords, without a single world king amongst them. If their inscription technique was placed in the lower realms, then it would be marvelous without compare, but if placed in the divine realm, it wasn't considered much at all. Moreover, the inscription technique of the divine realm was cast far behind by the long legacy of the spiriters in the Azura Road. In the divine realm, a top character like an Empyrean wouldn't study inscription technique because the value wasn't too great. But the divine runic arts of the Azura Road were different. According to what Solwhite had said, the divine runic arts could display effects beyond belief. Thus, Lin Ming was well aware that someone with his caliber of understanding was nothing when placed in Divine Rune City. Chapter 1543, The Qualifications to Enter the City. Chapter 1543, The Qualifications to Enter the City. The wild mountain range is in front of us. After the group traveled for around half a day, Yu Liuxing suddenly pointed towards a dark mountain that appeared before them. "This is the most dangerous part of the road. We must join together and fight as one. There are many different types of vicious beasts, but I understand their weaknesses and the ways to fight the most vicious types. Listen to my directions in battle." As Yu Liuxing reached the base of the mountain range, she pulled out a jade slip. Recorded within this jade slip was the terrain of the mountain range as well as the distribution degree of dangerous vicious beasts scattered throughout it. This surprised Lin Ming. According to most reasoning, the inner and outer Azura Road were nearly completely isolated from each other. He never imagined that these two siblings would have information on the inner Azura Road and in such an exhaustive manner that they even possessed a map of this mountain range detailing the distribution of vicious beasts. Our cultivation isn't high, so we can only avoid as many danger zones as we can. However, there are some places we won't be able to avoid. For instance, this place here is the habitat of the giant blood eagle, and we have to cross this area no matter what. The giant blood eagle has a bloodline connection to the ancient rock, so it is an extremely dangerous place to be. If we meet one or two, we should be able to deal with them, but if we meet a group, then we'll have no choice but to flee our separate ways and hope that the heavens smile down on us. Yu Liuxing earnestly stated her precautions and possible tactics. Xiao Moxian rubbed her chin as she listened to this. It was unknown how the ancestors of the monster beasts obtained their god-beast bloodline, but these bloodlines could be passed on for multiple generations without weakening. These kinds of vicious beasts were extremely nourishing, especially for mortals. Xiao Moxian chuckled, whispering to herself, "It seems my big yellow will have something to eat." Although the god-beast bloodline purity of these beasts is low, there should be an effect if he eats many of them. "Millimeter? What did you say?" Yu Liuxing asked, distracted. "Haha, it's nothing." 1 hour later. Whoosh! A sharp crackling sound howled through the air. A massive blood-red eagle with a fleshy head emitted terrifying screams as Xiao Moxian's whip slashed over its body, breaking one of its wings. Xiao Moxian's whip was like a cord of black lightning, nearly impossible to follow. Where it went, the void would sizzle, the piercing air penetrating through the ears. As the group of 4 traveled all this way, Lin Ming hadn't done anything at all. Xiao Moxian personally cut down all the dangers that appeared. Whether it was the giant blood eagle or any other type of vicious beast, all of them were cut down by Xiao Moxian like vegetables. Not even Yu Liuxing or Yu Qifeng were able to interfere. So fierce. The handsome and somewhat shy Yu Qifeng's mouth turned into an O shape as he saw this splendid battle take place. His eyes shined as he looked at Xiao Moxian, clearly filled with awe and worship. As for Yu Liuxing, this was completely unexpected. She never imagined that the 2 allies she pulled into her group would be so fierce. She originally thought that they would have to work together and pass through countless life or death dangers to travel through this mountain range, but what really happened was something completely different. Big Yellow, it's time to eat. As Xiao Moxian called out, there was a cheerful little roar as a small furry yellow dog rushed out from Xiao Moxian's spirit beast bag like a tiny whirlwind. Big Yellow drooled as it hurtled towards the giant blood eagle, cleanly eating it away in just a few moments of time. This left Yu Liuxing and her little brother dazed. They finally understood what Xiao Moxian had said by "It seems my Big Yellow will have something to eat now. How can that little thing eat so much?" Yu Qifeng felt this all to be unbelievable. She struggled to imagine how such a small body could eat so much. That beast that looks like a little yellow dog should be the girl's contract beast. If that girl is so fierce, then her contract beast likely isn't ordinary either. Maybe it is some sort of desolate ancient vicious beast. Yu Liuxing murmured. If it was a desolate ancient vicious beast, then she wouldn't be surprised by how much it ate. Yu Liuxing's guess was more or less correct. However, Big Yellow was not desolate ancient vicious beast but a Daotai god beast. Although its bloodline was inferior to the bloodline purity of Lin Ming's black dragon, a god beast was still a god beast. This sort of gluttonous god beast formed a separate world within its body. After growing up, it could even swallow a planet. After seeing the little yellow dog cleanly eat up the vicious beast, Yu Liuxing's eyes turned to Lin Ming. To her, Lin Ming was filled with even more mysteries. She could faintly feel that Xiao Moxian was following Lin Ming. If so, this meant that Lin Ming might even be stronger than Xiao Moxian. She didn't know just where these 2 humans had come from. Their strength was strong to the point of being abnormal. With Xiao Moxian and Lin Ming, the 4 of them reached Divine Rune City safely, without any accident at all. Divine Rune City was the largest city in the surrounding 10 million miles. A massive number of divine runic masters, alchemists, and top martial arts masters were gathered here. Such a city naturally had to have an imposing atmosphere. Lin Ming wouldn't be surprised if it had city walls as grand and tall as a mountain ridge. However, the reality was that Divine Rune City had no city walls at all. Instead of city walls, it had a titanic large-scale defensive array formation. This array formation also had the effect of gathering heaven and earth origin energy. Lin Ming could feel that the origin energy in the surrounding several hundred thousands of miles was being slowly gathered towards this array formation, finally settling near Divine Rune City. This caused the heaven and earth origin energy here to be thick to the point of nearly condensing into liquid. If one could cultivate here, they would absolutely have astronomical results. Just this advantage alone was enough to have countless martial artists seek out this land. Of course, this array formation needed a tremendous amount of energy to support it, otherwise it wouldn't activate. Even an Empyrean Holy Land would be overwhelmed with the task of supporting such a gargantuan array formation. From this, it could be seen that this Divine Rune City was disgustingly wealthy. However, this was also well within reason. Whether it was divine runic masters, alchemists, or refiners, all were rich characters amongst all martial artists. Lin Ming wholeheartedly pursued the martial path and thus didn't place much focus on these occupations, so he didn't have many interactions with these martial artists who focused on these secondary skills. Lin Ming originally thought that entering a treasure land like Divine Rune City required a high entrance fee, and this entrance fee would naturally be used to maintain the activation of the array formation. But he didn't think that there would be no entrance fee at all. Rather, the city had extremely high standards for all martial artists entering. As Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were about to enter the city, they were stopped by the city guard. These city guards had late divine lord realm cultivations. In a small holy land, divine lord martial artists could serve as outer court elders, but in Divine Rune City, they could only serve as gate guards. Determine your city entrance qualifications. The voices of the city guards were indifferent, with a faintly superior aura to them. It had to be known that the guards of Divine Rune City were part of the Divine Runic Corps, and thus they were treated extremely well. Their status was not low, and not only was their strength extraordinary, but they also had a considerable level of talents. There were many weak martial artists that wished to apply to become a guard for Divine Rune City but simply lacked the ability to do so. Me and my little brother are Divine Runic Masters, Yu Liuxing said. She drew traces in the air, her fingertips leaving behind paths of energy that coalesced into beautiful runes. With a glance to Yu Chifeng, he also quickly followed suit. As Lin Ming saw this, he recalled a scene from when he was 15 years old. When he had just obtained the magic cube, he had to go to the 7 profound martial houses' zither quarters to look up information about skyworm silk. But, because there were many beautiful women there, he had been mistaken by the elder senior sister there for some sort of sexual pervert who had gone to seek out advantages from the many beautiful women. The result was that Lin Ming had met Qin Xingxuan and had to prove that he was an inscription master, and the method he used was drawing an inscription symbol in the air. At the time, Qin Xingxuan had been shocked by Lin Ming's inscription technique. That was also the first time they met. Millimeter, your talent is satisfactory. A city guard nodded, revealing a convinced expression. These 2 city guards were also spiriters and had an approximate understanding of the divine runic arts. They were able to see how talented Yu Chifeng and Yu Liuxing were. Then you fellows, you don't seem to be divine runic masters. The city guards turned to Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, and upon seeing that they weren't spiriters, realized that they likely weren't divine runic masters. The talent of the other races in the divine runic arts simply couldn't compare to those of the soul race, thus most of those from other races usually wouldn't choose to become divine runic masters because no matter how hard they tried, it was far too hard for them to catch up to the talent of the spiriters. We aren't. Lin Ming didn't count on drawing up some half-baked inscription runes to pass. A city guard expectantly nodded. Then, he took out 2 god rune talismans from his spatial ring. These 2 god rune talismans turned into seals that sank into Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's body, casually wandering through them. What is this? Lin Ming could feel no malice behind these runes, thus he didn't try to stop them, but he was still unhappy that these city guards investigated them so suddenly. It is to determine your cultivation and skeletal age. Although there is no fee to enter Divine Rune City, the standards for entering are extremely strict. Otherwise, just the rich heaven and earth origin energy here would have had the city bursting at the seams with martial artists. Those that can enter the city must either be talented geniuses, powerhouses, or divine runic masters, alchemists, or refining masters. Since you 2 aren't powerhouses, divine runic masters, alchemists, or anything like that, you can only rely on your talent to enter, otherwise you cannot enter the city. We only allow the most extraordinary of individuals to enter, the city guard proudly said. Lin Ming was startled as he heard this. If they admitted only the most extraordinary of individuals, then it wasn't a surprise that Divine Rune City's strength had developed to such a terrifying degree. After the city guard finished, he looked at the results of the runes. From what he saw, he was left dumbfounded. He never thought that the young man and woman standing in front of him were 2 monstrous geniuses. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian had youthful appearances, but the truth was that martial artists had many techniques to disguise their looks. It was hard to tell one's age from appearances alone, but these divine runes would not be mistaken. They could measure a person's skeletal age to within a year. One has cultivated martial arts for over 40 years, and the other for more than 50 years, The city guard's mouth fell open. To reach the Divine Lord realm at only 40 to 50 years was simply the talent of an abnormal freak. He had thought that his talent was good to begin with, but compared to this young man and woman in front of him, he was simply garbage. Chapter 1544, Lin Ming's Goal. Chapter 1544, Lin Ming's Goal. Do we have the qualifications to enter the city? Yes, of course you do. The city guard respectfully handed over the city tokens. In the 33 heavens, because humanity had devolved in the past, their status wasn't too high in the Azura Road. If they went to some places, it was likely they would be looked down upon and excluded by others. But in the Azura Road, strength stood above all. If one's talent reached a certain boundary, then regardless of whether they were human or some other race, they would be respected all the same. The city guard suspected that Lin Ming was the successor of some great influence. He naturally couldn't offend such a person. When Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian obtained the qualifications to enter the city, Yu Liuxing looked at them curiously. She had seen the amazed expressions of the city guard from the side of her eyes. Without a doubt, Lin Ming's strength and talent were far more terrifying than she had originally anticipated. "We will be going to the Divine Runic Master Guild for the examination now. Would you like to come and have a look?" Originally, after entering Divine Rune City, the relationship between the two groups should have ended here. However, Yu Liuxing and Yu Qifeng were far too young, and although they were proud of their talents in the divine runic arts, their actual combat strengths were somewhat lacking. If they could become friends with two powerhouses like Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, then that would give them many advantages. "Millimeter, we'll come too." Lin Ming readily agreed. This startled Xiao Moxian. She said with a true essence sound transmission, "Since when did you enjoy joining in on the fun? Did you want to see how great the difference is between the inscription masters of the Divine Realm and the Divine Runic Masters of the Azura Road?" Lin Ming shook his head. "It's just convenient. The reason I want to go to the Divine Runic Master Guild is also the true reason why I came to Divine Rune City. I want to find the path of how to cultivate the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. To cultivate the 9 stars of the Dao Palace required 2 essential factors. One was inheritances, in other words, cultivation method manuals. And second was resources, in other words pills and other materials. In terms of cultivation methods, the Celestial Tyrant Manual that Lin Ming trained in mostly focused on the 8 inner hidden gates, in particular the gates of life and death. The Esoteric Immortality Pill for the Gate of Life and the Esoteric Mortality Pill for the Gate of Death were both found in the Celestial Tyrant Manual. But in terms of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, the Celestial Tyrant Manual didn't have many records on it. Or, it was more accurate to say that these records had already been lost. When Mo Eversnow's grandfather obtained the Celestial Tyrant Manual in the ancient ruins where he also found the magic cube, it had been incomplete. Thus, now that Lin Ming had broken through to the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, he was at a loss as to how he should further continue. The Azura Sutra first volume also had body transformation cultivation methods. But, these methods were mostly focused on raising the Essence Spirit Embryo Stone, and in terms of type, they were far closer to the Saint race. There was a great difference between the Azura Sutra first volume and the 9 stars of the Dao Palace that humanity cultivated. Missing cultivation methods was one part, and pills and resources were another. In the essence gathering system aspect, Lin Ming didn't have too high a need for pills. But in the body transformation system, it was impossible to continue without pills. When Lin Ming first tried to complete tempering marrow, he had used up several thousand heaven opening pills without accomplishing it. And to the relatively minor person that Lin Ming was back then, every heaven opening pill was extremely precious. In the past, the martial house master of the 7 profound martial house, Qin Zia, had been stranded at the peak Hutian realm for over 20 years, unable to break into the Xiantian realm because he didn't have a heaven opening pill. That was how precious they were. Tempering marrow was divided into percentages, and the closer one reached to 100%, the more difficult it would become to continue. Lin Ming finally had to rely on the shattered demon heart crystal, and only then was he able to forcefully lift his tempering marrow boundary to 60 to 70%. Finally, he had relied on the Nirvana dragon root he obtained in the Demon Emperor Palace to bring his tempering marrow to perfection. Following that, when he opened the 8 inner hidden gates, each gate was more difficult than the last. In cultivating the body transformation technique, Lin Ming had spent a massive amount of heavenly materials. Each heavenly material that Lin Ming used for his breakthroughs possessed a shocking value for that relative cultivation level, enough that martial artists several boundaries higher would be willing to engage in life or death battles for them. Finally, when Lin Ming broke through the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, that was also because he had accumulated resources to the peak. Not only did he have the support of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead Essence and the sealed energy from the Essence Spirit Embryo Stone, he also needed Xiao Moxian's primordial yin blood. With these three incomparably precious treasures together, only then did he accomplish a miracle and complete his breakthrough of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. From this alone, one could see that walking down the road of body transformation was truly a heaven-defying path. Lin Ming had only opened a single star, and there were still 8 stars behind that. Thinking about it, he felt a bit powerless and frustrated. Even though Lin Ming had a firm heart of martial arts, it was still hard to not be bitter about it. The following 8 stars would inevitably require an astronomical amount of resources. Not just that, but looking for materials, looking for pill recipes, finding a master alchemist, all of these problems were enough to cause a grand headache. It would be great if I could become a divine runic master and alchemist. This thought flashed through Lin Ming's mind. However, whether it was the divine runic arts or alchemy, it wasn't something that could be learnt in one day. One had to study from the very start in order to be successful. Even though Lin Ming's perception was high, it would still be difficult for him. Lin Ming could only take a step back and consider befriending some high-rank divine runic masters and alchemists of Divine Rune City. If they had something they were interested in, then he might be able to ask them to help him refine some pills or draw up some inscriptions. However, any divine runic master or alchemist who could refine the pills for the 9 stars of the Tao Palace would inevitably be a grandmaster. One didn't need to be a genius to know that all grandmaster-level characters had long since joined great influences where they were worshipped and treated as living Buddhas. Wanting to ask them for any sort of help without enough rewards was an impossible matter. And for the current Lin Ming, besides the Magic Cube, Primordius Gate, Primordius Heavenly Palace, and Black Dragon Egg, there was nothing he possessed which would be able to tempt these grandmasters. And Lin Ming would never barter with those items to begin with. This is really troublesome. Lin Ming rubbed his temples. 9 stars of the Tao Palace pills, alchemists, as well as methods to train in the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. I wonder if we'll be able to find any of these things in Divine Rune City. Divine Rune City had a history of several 100 million years, and for this entire time they had gathered countless extraordinary individuals. This city was known as a place that could solve any matter in the aspect of pills or inscriptions. No matter how one thought about it, this was the easiest place to find ways to cultivate the 9 stars of the Tao Palace or ancient pill recipes. In Divine Rune City, there was no need to ask where the Divine Runic Master Guild was. It was the most eye-catching as well as the highest construction in the entire city. That is the Divine Runic Master Guild. Yu Liuxing pointed at a divine pagoda in the center of the city that was several thousand feet high. From any corner of Divine Rune City, one could see this massive pagoda. As they walked towards the tall pagoda, one could see Divine Lord and Holy Lord Realm Masters everywhere. Really, in this place where Holy Lords walked everywhere, it made one feel as if Divine Lords were as common as dogs. One would occasionally see those with lower cultivations, but these were all outstanding individuals of their level, all of them young elites. Just like the city guard had said, Divine Rune City only allowed the best to enter. The descendants of elites, the apprentices of elites, they too tended to be elites. Gradually, Divine Rune City became a place where talented people gathered, like a growing den of dragons. Thus, in the inner Azura Road, Divine Rune City was a particularly special existence. Although they weren't a sect, they were a city that was united together. There was no other influence who wished to look to Divine Rune City for trouble. The streets of Divine Rune City were lined with numerous shops. There were pill stores, weapon stores, inscription stores, and countless others. Half of the shops here were part of the business complex of the Divine Runic Master Guild. Just the income from these shops alone reached an incalculable number, more than enough to continue supplying the great array formation of Divine Rune City. Within Divine Rune City, fighting was banned and flying was prohibited. Those who violated the city rules would be severely punished. At the same time, there was an extremely strict hierarchical system in Divine Rune City. Here, high-ranked divine runic masters could enjoy all sorts of privileges, and those that offended them would be captured and imprisoned. It was even possible that these divine runic masters would kill those who offended them and no one would stop them or mourn the deaths of those they killed. Before arriving at Divine Rune Pagoda, Lin Ming could feel strange changes in the heaven and earth origin energy around him. Lin Ming had already seen many places with rich heaven and earth origin energy. For instance, the heaven and earth origin energy of Divine Dream Heavenly Palace was so rich that it turned to strands of fog. This wasn't strange at all. However, the heaven and earth origin energy around Divine Rune Pagoda wasn't just rich, but the origin energy was faintly restrained by some sorts of laws, forming an indescribably coordinated beauty. Lin Ming even discovered that as he approached closer to Divine Rune Pagoda, the heaven and earth origin energy around him began to spontaneously form runes, just like inscription runes. This scene shocked Lin Ming. The heaven and earth origin energy here was clearly condensing into inscription runes. From this, one could infer just what degree of magnificence the inscription technique of this Divine Rune Pagoda held. Chapter 1545. Information about the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. Chapter 1545. Information about the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. For the surrounding 10 miles around Divine Rune Pagoda, there wasn't a single building. The entire area was a massive square, and on this square were all sorts of martial arts vendors who were selling various goods. Some sold pills, some sold weapons, but of course, most of them sold inscriptions and divine runic inscriptions. All of the stalls were well organized. Lin Ming cast out his sense and was able to approximately feel that in this 10-mile square trading market, there were around several tens of thousands of people. These several tens of thousands of people were all outstanding individuals. Whether it was sellers or buyers, none of them were poor. In such a giant trading market, the daily volume of transactions was mind-boggling. This Divine Rune City is quite lively. Lin Ming sighed. Yes, Divine Rune City is the most famous trading hub in the inner Azura Road because there are a massive number of pills, divine runic inscriptions, weapons, and all sorts of other things that are sold here. Many people prefer coming here to buy and sell their goods because of the required qualifications to enter the city. Because of their strict standards, everything sold in Divine Rune City is only the highest quality of good. In Divine Rune City, there are 10 large trading companies and the largest of them belongs to the Divine Runic Master Guild. Every 3 years, this trading company will hold a large-scale treasure exhibition show. At that time, all sorts of influential forces throughout the Azura Road will bring their treasures here to display and trade amongst each other. There are extremely good treasures that can be found and traded, and there are also open sales all over. This treasure exhibition will continue for a full month, and almost anything you can imagine can be purchased at this exhibition. Not only are there pill and divine runic inscriptions, but there is also a great number of ancient pill recipes, ancient inheritances, god-beast flesh and blood, Empyrean spirit treasures, transcendent divine mites, and even relics of true divinities from times long past. Yu Liuxing confidently spoke up from near Lin Ming, a somewhat satisfied tone in her voice. It had to be known that in Divine Rune City, almost 90% of the people were spiriters. In a sense, Divine Rune City was a city of the soul race. For her own race to have such a bustling city, Yu Liuxing was certainly proud of this. Oh, there is this kind of grand meeting. Lin Ming was even more satisfied with this Divine Rune City. In such a large volume of transactions, there would definitely be some that concerned inheritances and pills of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. In ancient times, the 9 stars of the Tao Palace was a considerably popular human cultivation method, so it wouldn't be surprising for inheritances to be left behind in ancient runes. Of course, even if Divine Rune City has a tremendous amount of daily business, there are still Empyreans that come here every year to make transactions of their own. Besides various treasures, you can also inquire into all sorts of information. All of the greatest intelligence networks of the inner Azura Road have branches in Divine Rune City, and some of them are even headquartered here. In short, in Divine Rune City, if you want to buy something, the premise is not whether you can find it here but whether or not you can afford it. The hard currency here is pills or origin energy runes. I understand. Lin Ming subconsciously traced his spatial ring. In terms of wealth, Lin Ming was once rich. But because of his battle with Qian Mingzi, he had been forced to use up a massive number of 9 sun jades to power Primordius Heavenly Palace. Although he was still considerably wealthy, The amount of money he had was completely inadequate to buy pill materials for the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. How to obtain a sufficient amount of wealth was one of the problems Lin Ming worried about. You just said that there are intelligence networks that sell information? Lin Ming planned to inquire into information pertaining to the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. To have pre-prepared information was always better than flying around like a headless fly. That's right. In Divine Rune City, the most famous intelligence network is Heaven's Secret. Their headquarters are based here, and if you have anything you wish to find out, chances are you'll be able to discover it. I understand, thank you very much. There are indeed some things I wish to ask about, so we'll leave our sound transmission marks with you and part ways for now. Hearing Lin Ming say he was leaving, Yu Liuxing was startled for a moment, but there wasn't anything she could do to stop him. After the two groups exchanged sound transmission marks, Lin Ming then left with Xiao Moxian towards Heaven's Secret. Heaven's Secret was also located at the center of Divine Rune City. It was extremely easy for Lin Ming to find. The headquarters of Heaven's Secret wasn't considered too grand. From the outside it seemed like an antique pavilion that was a bit too old-fashioned. There were gardens surrounding it that extended out for several miles. Lin Ming didn't need to be a genius to know that the value of land in Divine Rune City came at a sky-high premium. If Heaven's Secret was able to construct such a luxurious garden in Divine Rune City, it was a clear indication of their status. Entering the pavilion, Lin Ming looked up at the entranceway to see a plaque with the words Heaven's Secret Pavilion written on it in large brushstrokes. Young hero, is there information you would like to inquire about? Someone welcomed Lin Ming at the entrance. This person was only a doorman, but their foundation was extremely solid. The way he walked and spoke was steady and solid. He was definitely an outstanding person amongst his peers. Millimeter. What would you like to ask about? The information that our Heaven's Secret sells is divided into different ranks and different prices. The higher level the information is, the more valuable it is. At the highest level, the information will come at an astronomical price. Heaven's Secret Pavilion had a total of 7 floors. The lowest floor had the cheapest information, but even though this was only the most ordinary information, it still wasn't something that an ordinary Divine Sea powerhouse would be able to handle. 9 stars of the Dao Palace. Lin Ming directly stated his goal for coming here. Please enter the 5th level. The doorman respectfully said. It was clear that this doorman was an extremely knowledgeable person. Just from some casual term that a guest gave out, he was able to judge the approximate value of it. To be able to understand many things from all over the Azura Road as well as the entire 33 heavens, this wasn't something that an ordinary person could hope to accomplish. Just this alone made Lin Ming feel a bit more confident about this Heaven's Secret. If they dared to call themselves the #1 intelligence network of Divine Rune City, then they really must be amazing. The 9 stars of the Dao Palace is only a 5th level inquiry. It doesn't seem that it's too exaggerated. Lin Ming traced his chin. There were still 2 levels above the 5th. This meant that information about the 9 stars of the Dao Palace wasn't too difficult to look up. In other words, inheritances of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace shouldn't be difficult to find either. Of course, it was unknown what the rank of this inheritance would be. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian walked up to the 5th level. The one who greeted them was an old man. In front of this old man was a table with many wooden signs placed atop it. These wood signs had words such as inheritances, pills, sects, cities, mystic realms, races, vicious beasts, and so forth, each of them pertaining to the matter of information that someone wanted to look up. The person seeking information here would pick up the appropriate wooden sign and would then be directed to the corresponding room. Lin Ming picked up the wooden sign for inheritances. Afterwards, a woman in a green dress came and brought Lin Ming to a different room. After closing, all sound and aura was isolated outwards. It was clear that there was an extremely well-done array formation constructed in this room to prevent anyone from spying inwards. An old woman in brocaded robes was already sitting down in this room, waiting for Lin Ming. What sort of inheritance would you like to inquire about? The old woman asked in an elderly voice. The 9 stars of the Dao Palace. As Lin Ming spoke, an astonished light shined in the old woman's eyes. She stared at Lin Ming deeply. The 9 stars of the Tao Palace had long been lost to the rivers of time. She was currently unable to judge what Lin Ming's body transformation cultivation was, but only knew that he was at least at the peak of the 8 inner hidden gates. For a youth to open the complete 8 inner hidden gates, that wasn't easy at all. If you're asking about the 9 stars of the Tao Palace, then you should understand just how difficult it is. It is one of the 33 heavenly Taos. I know. Lin Ming calmly nodded. Millimeter, if you can cultivate the 8 inner hidden gates to this degree, then your understanding of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace is likely greater than my own. I can only give you some information about inheritances, and as for cultivating, everything will depend on yourself. The old woman didn't try to urge Lin Ming not to waste his time or effort, she was only responsible for sharing information with guests here. As for the purpose of that information, she didn't ask that either. About the inheritance of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace, there are 42 pieces of information. Each piece of information is ranked differently, and the higher the rank, the more expensive it is to find out. The old woman was very familiar with the information about the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. All of this information was gathered by Heaven's Secret. Heaven's Secret would gather all sorts of information, and then this information would be sorted and classified into different categories and then passed out to the individual responsible for that corresponding category. That person was responsible for memorizing all of this information so that when guests came, there was no need to look up information, they would have the answers readily available. I only want the highest rank. It needs to be at the Transcendent Divine Might rank or above. Lin Ming gained a bit more confidence in Heaven's Secret as he heard this number. As he had expected, it wasn't too difficult to look up information on inheritances of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. Transcendent Divine Might? It seems you have a big appetite, the old woman chuckled. But, those that would enter my Heaven's Secret headquarters to inquire about information would have to have at least that much. When it comes to low-rank cultivation methods, we simply don't bother recording them at all. If you are looking for transcendent divine mights, there is indeed one, but it isn't complete at all. There are 3 pieces of information, each one costing 350 million origin energy runes. If you want, I can sell you all 3 for $1 billion. Also, we only provide information. Our information doesn't mean that you will be successful in your quest. But, what you should know is that for the price we charge, we will not provide any false information to you. If you ultimately cannot find what you are looking for, then the problem lies with you. The old woman calmly said. This expensive price left Lin Ming secretly flabbergasted. Origin energy runes were a currency unique to the Azura Road. They could be manufactured by having blank runes absorb heaven and earth origin energy. There were many strong martial artists who had no other way of earning money, and who would spend a massive amount of time to create these origin energy runes and then use them to purchase goods. In the Azura Road, every business that was connected to the Azura Road Heavenly Tao had to use origin energy runes. Lin Ming suspected that these origin energy runes were the source for how the Heavenly Tao rules revolved in the Azura Road, and thus how they became the hard currency for this land. 1 billion origin energy runes were equal to 10 trillion violet sunstones. This was far more expensive than the boundless world pill that Lin Ming had spent nearly all his wealth buying in the past, and this was only for information about a transcendent divine might. As for whether or not he could rely on this information to obtain a transcendent divine might, that was hard to say. This high price was simply because a transcendent divine might was far too precious. In the divine realm, it was considered wonderful if a world king holy land could have even an incomplete transcendent divine might. If it weren't for the fact that the 9 stars of the Tao Palace received such little attention, then this price might be even higher. I only have 9 sun jades. Lin Ming said. We accept 9 sun jades. If you wish to pay in 9 sun jades, then that will be 11 of them. Lin Ming pulled out 11 9 sun jades. The old woman picked them up and appraised their purity before nodding with satisfaction. Those that could use 9 sun jades as currency were clearly not poor, because these were things created by human Empyreans. The old woman accepted the 9 sun jades and then took out a blank white jade. She poured her divine sense into it and soon wrote down all the necessary information. Then, she gave this jade slip to Lin Ming. The information is in here. Take a look. Thank you. Lin Ming took the jade slip and swept through it with his divine sense. But as he saw the contents, he was left startled. How is this possible? Something like this could happen. Chapter 1546, Riddle of the Cultivation Method. Chapter 1546, Riddle of the Cultivation Method. In the jade slip, there were 3 pieces of information recorded down about transcendent divine mites of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. The first piece of information came from 30 years ago. The Forbidden Divine Barrens was a dangerous death zone. It was said that it was a land left behind by a great body transformation emperor. And this great body transformation emperor was a human. In the Forbidden Divine Barrens, someone had once found a remnant of a transcendent divine mite related to the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. However, they disappeared afterwards and their whereabouts were currently unknown. The second piece of information came from 40 years ago. In the stormy sea, there were a number of islands that seemed to flit in and out of existence. One of these islands held an ancient ruin that concerned the 9 stars of the Tao Palace, and there were said to be inheritances left behind by powerhouses that once practiced the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. However, the location of this island was filled with uncertainties, and many people even thought it was nothing more than a mirage. A great number of powerhouses had gone to the stormy sea to seek out some clues of this island, but they all failed. Some people even went missing and no one knew whether they had died or not. The third piece of information was also the simplest. The first 2 pieces of information were about mystic realm danger zones. Wanting to find transcendent divine mites of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace from those places was as dangerous as ascending to the heavens, and if there were any mistakes at all, one could even lose their life. But the third piece of information was more concrete. In the inner Azura Road, there was an assassin organization known as Heaven's Net. This Heaven's Net had a branch division in Divine Rune City, and the third leader of Heaven's Net was a human. This person dual cultivated in body and energy and trained in a remnant transcendent divine might of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. If one was willing to pay a high enough price, they could borrow it for a look. But what truly shocked Lin Ming was that the remnant transcendent divine might that the third leader of this Heaven's Net assassin organization possessed was the Celestial Tyrant Manual. This startled Lin Ming a great deal. Was there such a coincidence in this world? He himself possessed the 8 inner hidden gate section of the Celestial Tyrant Manual, and just by casually inquiring at Heaven's Secret, he would find information about the 9 stars of the Tao Palace section of the Celestial Tyrant Manual. Could the Celestial Tyrant Manual have been a common body transformation law formula of ancient times, and thus there were many copies of it? As soon as this thought appeared in Lin Ming's mind, he shot it down. He didn't know what level of cultivation method the Celestial Tyrant Manual was, but he guessed that it was a transcendent divine might. And now, Heaven's Secret also recognized it as a transcendent divine might. Without a doubt, this was the most likely situation. If the Celestial Tyrant Manual were indeed a transcendent divine might, then wanting to make another copy of it was nearly impossible. To do so, one needed to have reached large success in cultivating the Celestial Tyrant Manual, and the one who did so would be a body transformation Empyrean. Many transcendent divine might manuals were singularly unique. This showed just how precious they were. Moreover, the Celestial Tyrant Manual that Lin Ming had was found in an ancient ruin along with the magic cube. If there was an inheritance cultivation method that could be found together with the magic cube and was related to the magic cube, then it definitely wouldn't be something common. My Celestial Tyrant Manual was obtained by the Verdant Featherworld King, and at the time, he only managed to obtain the section about the 8 inner hidden gates. If there is only one copy of the Celestial Tyrant Manual, then, does the Celestial Tyrant Manual that the third leader of Heaven's Net possesses make a set with mine? This is too coincidental. How could it be such a coincidence? Lin Ming felt this all to be unbelievable. It had to be known that the magic cube was discovered in the divine realm. But in this Azura Road that was a completely separate universe from the divine realm, he actually managed to find news about the other half of the Celestial Tyrant Manual. How could he not be surprised? Anomalies like this that were out of the ordinary were always suspicious. Lin Ming couldn't help but think there was some unknown secret. But no matter what, Lin Ming decided to meet this Heaven's Net leader to see where the Celestial Tyrant manual in their hands had come from. So, these 3 pieces of information, do they satisfy you? The old woman faintly said. She had noticed the shock on Lin Ming's face as he read through the jade slip. But, she didn't ask further because it wasn't her concern at all. She was only here to provide information and receive payment. I'm satisfied. Lin Ming believed that the information coming from Heaven's Secret was true. If they were able to stand tall in Divine Rune City where there were so many powerhouses and also become the largest intelligence network in this city, then it would have been impossible to reach these heights by swindling their way here. Moreover, the Celestial Tyrant manual indeed existed. But, I want to ask something. How can I contact this Heaven's Net third leader? Lin Ming guessed that a behind-the-scenes leader of an assassin organization was mostly a mysterious figure. Wanting to make contact with him wouldn't be easy at all. The old woman said, "Consider this information a free gift to you. Wanting to make contact with the Heaven's Net third leader is extremely difficult, and all I know is that this person's codename is Blood Moon. This person's whereabouts are all a mystery, and if you are thinking about joining Heaven's Net to find them, then you will be wasting your time. This is because Heaven's Net doesn't accept new members like yourself. Most of the people in their ranks start out as extremely talented children that they take in. These people have all grown up in Heaven's Net and have been trained in that hellish environment, making all of them loyal and devoted to their organization." Lin Ming wasn't surprised by this at all. An assassin organization particularly focused on the loyalty and confidentiality of their members. Many of them wore masks for their entire lives, and even their team members wouldn't know their true appearance or name, only knowing them by their codename. Assassin organizations most loved looking for orphans and children that were extremely good at stealing and pickpocketing. By raising these people from their childhood and training them into sublime killers, these people would be utterly loyal to the organization and their backgrounds would also be clean. Senior, you said that most of the people from Heaven's Net were raised since childhood, but what about the rest? The old woman said, the rest have either been thoroughly inspected by Heaven's Net for a long time or they have been guaranteed by extremely important individuals of Heaven's Net. These types of people are normally extremely talented individuals, for instance, divine runic masters or alchemist. No matter how perfect the training system of Heaven's Net is, it is impossible for them to train divine runic grandmasters or alchemist grandmasters. Otherwise, there would be no need for an existence like the Divine Runic Master Guild. However, as an assassin organization, it is impossible for them to lack talented individuals in those aspects, thus they can only take in divine runic masters, alchemists, and refiners after they have been trained. If you wanted to make contact with Heaven's Net's third leader, then being introduced by divine runic masters or alchemists is the best way to go about it. This is because the Heaven's Net third leader has a high need of pills and he is also needing people to refine them. If you are a divine runic grandmaster or grandmaster alchemist, then you won't even need to look for him, he will look for you. The old woman slowly said. Since Blood Moon Jewel cultivated in body and energy, he certainly needed pills. Let alone Blood Moon, even someone like Lin Ming who experienced Lucky Chance after Lucky Chance needed pills and materials to the point of suffocating from them. Now, Lin Ming had finished swallowing all God-Beast parts he had finished swallowing the 9-star Heaven pill, had finished swallowing the Grand Mist Spirit Bead Essence, and had even absorbed Xiao Moxian's primordial yin blood to bring himself into harmony. If he wanted to continue training, then he would really be nothing but a destitute beggar with nothing to his name. Senior, do you think I am an alchemist or something? Lin Ming ruefully smiled. That's not my problem. If you know any Grandmaster alchemists or divine runic grandmasters, then you can have them introduce you. I've already provided you with the method on how to make contact, so what else do you have to ask me? Nothing, Lin Ming helplessly said. Out of all the people this person could be, they had to be a leader of an assassin organization. This type of person was usually secretive in their movements, a divine dragon that never showed their face, so where would he begin looking for them? All right. If you have any other information you wish to inquire into, then feel free to visit. The old woman expressionlessly saw her guests out. Like this, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian left Heaven's secret pavilion. Lin Ming, what was in that jade slip that surprised you so much? And you even have to ask about an assassin organization? Xiao Moxian asked Lin Ming as soon as they left. Lin Ming answered without hiding anything from her. After Xiao Moxian heard this, she pressed her eyebrows together and said, "Is it that strange? Reasonably speaking, your Celestial Tyrant Manual should be a singularly unique copy. If so, then the Celestial Tyrant Manual that Blood Moon possesses should have been two parts of a whole to the one that you have. It's only that they were separated, and they were separated so long ago. The first half was left in an ancient ruin within the Divine Realm, and the second half came all the way to the Azura Road. I wonder how this is related. I think it's strange too. It seems there is some mystery to this codename Blood Moon." Lin Ming couldn't figure out what the reason was. The only way he would be able to find out the truth was if he met Blood Moon in the future. The truth was that what Lin Ming wanted to know the most was how the Celestial Tyrant Manual was related to the Magic Cube. Was it just a coincidence that the first half of it was found together with the Magic Cube? Unfortunately, the Verdant Featherworld King had died long ago, so this mystery was hard to solve. If he could see the second half of the Celestial Tyrant Manual, would he be able to find some clues about the Magic Cube? This was something that Lin Ming deeply cared about, even more so than the 9 stars of the Dao Palace cultivation method itself. After all, the Magic Cube was Lin Ming's most important treasure. His initial rise to fame had relied upon the Magic Cube, and as Lin Ming stepped into the Divine Lord realm and his cultivation continued to increase, he would be able to control more and more strength of the Magic Cube. The Magic Cube would eventually become Lin Ming's most powerful magic tool. In the future, he might need to use the Magic Cube to kill his enemies. In the future great calamity of humanity, the Magic Cube would become one of Lin Ming's greatest strengths. Any secret regarding the Magic Cube was extremely important to him. What do you plan on doing? Xiao Moxian shrugged. Have you thought about becoming a divine runic master? You should be able to meet this third leader like that, right? Don't you have some experience with inscription technique? But, it does seem that the Azura Road's inscription technique is far more profound than that of the Divine Realm, and they have even combined it with God runes. How could I possibly do that? Lin Ming ruefully smiled. My inscription technique is too shameful to even show others, much less combine with God runes. How could it be that easy? As Lin Ming spoke to hear, he immediately perked up. Inscription technique combined with God runes. God runes, that's right. A brilliant light flashed in Lin Ming's mind. The God runes of the Azura Road could be obtained by challengers after they completed certain tasks. They were in a sense traces of the great Tao that corresponded to the heavenly Tao of the Azura Road. They were divided into many different grades, for instance, silver, gold, blue soul, zenith black, and so forth. Once one collected enough God runes, then they could open the final trial of the Azura Road. As for divine runic inscriptions, they were able to use the God runes of the Azura Road in inscription technique, forming the divine runic arts. I have successfully obtained and studied the Azura Sutra first volume, and I understand the Azura Road heavenly Tao, then, God runes, perhaps I might be able to draw up one myself? As this crazy thought began to grow within Lin Ming's mind, he gained unprecedented clarity of his path. If he could become a divine runic master, then not only would he be able to see the third leader of Heaven's Net, but it would be a great help to paving his future path to the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. Chapter 1547, Divine Runic Masters Guild. Chapter 1547, Divine Runic Masters Guild. Rather than asking others, it was better to ask himself. If Lin Ming wanted to walk down the path of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, his dependence on pills was far too great. And, in order to make pills for the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, each material needed was rarer than the last. Moreover, to refine them was extremely difficult, something that would be nearly impossible for anyone that wasn't a Grandmaster Alchemist. But, asking a Grandmaster Alchemist for help wasn't easy to begin with. In addition to that, the 9 stars of the Dao Palace often used ancient pill recipes, the kind that alchemists almost never refined. Even if they did, they would need to spend some time familiarizing themselves with the process. This only added another level of difficulty, and a Grandmaster Alchemist might not be willing to waste so much time. Thus, there was no choice that would be as convenient as Lin Ming's own alchemy ability. Divine Runic Master, Alchemist. Perhaps I really need to consider learning them. Lin Ming thought to himself. Then, at this time, a flame lit up in front of him. It was a sound-transmitting talisman sending a message from Yu Liuxing. The general gist of it was that she had completed the Divine Runic Arts assessment with her little brother. Yu Liuxing had been evaluated as a 4th-grade inscription master, Divine Runic Arts apprentice. Yu Chifeng had been evaluated as a 3rd-grade inscription master, Divine Runic Arts apprentice. Yu Liuxing's voice in the sound-transmitting talisman was one of joy and happiness. She was clearly more than satisfied with her results. Moreover, they had both been evaluated as possessing extremely high levels of talent and were fortunate enough to be received as disciples by an elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. Even though they were only ordinary disciples now, if they performed their duties well, they had a chance of rising to be direct disciples in the future and possibly even being the ones to inherit the legacy of that elder. At that time, Yu Liuxing and Yu Chifeng would both become characters that could wield power as they pleased, mighty and unapproachable. At the end of the message, Yu Liuxing invited Lin Ming to come and take a look at the Divine Runic Masters Guild. This was just what Lin Ming wanted to do. He wanted to see what sort of scene the Divine Runic Masters Guild was like. The tall pagoda where the Divine Runic Masters Guild was located was filled year-round with the lingering fragrance of incense and medicine. In the skies around the pagoda, strange god runes appeared from time to time. Many martial artists that came to Divine Rune City would often come here for sightseeing and be amazed by the wondrous scenes all around them. As Lin Ming arrived at Divine Rune Pagoda, he saw a line of martial artists all waiting to take the assessment. These people were all uncommon individuals, and in Lin Ming's eyes, many of them could be considered heroic young elites. For Lin Ming to judge someone as a heroic young elite, they had to at least have the ability to stand tall in an ordinary world king holy land. What are they doing? Lin Ming could see that the content of the tests these young martial artists were taking was similar to the 7 profound martial houses 10,000 killing array. They would need to enter the illusory magic array and then fight their way through to assess their strength. Brother Lin, over here. The voice of a young girl suddenly called out. Lin Ming turned to see that the one shouting to him was Yu Liuxing. She beckoned to Lin Ming from the crowd, having Lin Ming walk over. Beside Yu Liuxing was Yu Chifeng, as well as another Spiritus man. This Spiritus man had a middle divine lord realm cultivation. Lin Ming guessed that he wasn't too old. For him to have this cultivation at his current age was quite rare. Let me introduce you, this is my senior apprentice brother, 5th grade inscription master, 3rd grade divine runic master Luo Yubai, senior apprentice brother Liu. Senior apprentice brother Liu is the most magnificent direct disciple beneath my master and just completed his test to become a 3rd grade divine runic master last year. Yu Liuxing clearly held deep admiration in her eyes as she introduced Lin Ming to this person. In particular, when she mentioned the words direct disciple and 3rd grade divine runic master, her eyes shined particularly bright as if she couldn't conceal the envy and respect within her. In Divine Rune City, inscription masters were divided into 12 grades and divine runic masters were divided into 9 grades. It wasn't hard to rise in grade as an inscription master, but wanting to rise in grade as a divine runic master was far, far too hard. In the inner Azura Road, there were numerous 12th grade inscription masters, but there wasn't a single 9th grade divine runic master. In fact, 8th grade divine runic masters were nearly myths unto themselves. As for 9th grade divine runic masters, they had only existed in ancient times several billion years ago. To divine runic masters, a 9th grade divine runic master was an existence close to that of God. It was because of this extremely difficult grading system that Yu Liuxing was filled with admiration and yearning towards the term 3rd grade divine runic master. A 3rd grade divine runic master was high enough to receive a courteous reception from almost any large influence. This was particularly true for someone like Luo Yubai. With his extremely high talent, his future was limitless. He might even become a 6th grade divine runic master in the future. This meant that many great world kings would be respectful when seeing Luo Yubai, treating him with the same dignity that they reserved for their descendants. Lin Ming glanced over Luo Yubai. This person was indeed outstanding. From looks, He seemed to be around 23 to 24 years old. He was tall and stood straight with an imposing and immaculate appearance. His forehead was wide and even, and he had the aura of a natural-born ruler. On his right eye was a small round lens, something that resembled a monocle. In fact, this was a common magic tool that divine runic masters used and was specifically for analyzing the structure of divine runes. He wore robes of black and white, like ink on water. The base of his clothes were white, and black ink traced lines along them. These lines were designs of divine runic inscriptions and looked natural and pleasing. "Hello," Lin Ming politely greeted. Luo Yubai glanced at Lin Ming without any expression. Then, Lin Ming felt a sudden divine sense wash over his body as if it wanted to thrust into his spiritual sea and inner world, completely understanding here. Lin Ming's mind chilled. He immediately summoned a little power from the magic cube, and in addition to the divine mist heart mantra that he studied, he concealed his inner world and spiritual sea, making it so that Luo Yubai only saw faint white mirages. With Luo Yubai's cultivation, it was impossible for him to see through any secrets within Lin Ming. But, no one liked being probed by others, and this was the most basic form of politeness between martial artists. Luo Yubai certainly knew this. But, as a divine runic master and also a spiritus, he was particularly skilled in the aspect of sense. In any normal circumstances, it was impossible for human martial artists of the same step to discover that he was probing them, much less Lin Ming, who was at a much lower cultivation boundary. Upon discovering that there wasn't anything special about Lin Ming, Luo Yubai proceeded to ignore him. Since Lin Ming was a human, this made it so that Luo Yubai had fundamentally no interest in exchanging any pleasantries with him. He pushed up the monocle on his eye and faintly said to Yu Liuxing, "These two are your friends?" "Why, yes." Yu Liuxing was a bit embarrassed as she saw the lack of expression on Luo Yubai's face. Later, don't bring irrelevant people to the Divine Runic Masters Guild. We'll consider it fine just this once. Luo Yubai used a sound transmission to speak and didn't say it out loud. Then, he turned and left. But, his expression and gestures demonstrated a clear sense of superiority that caused Xiao Moxian's eyes to twitch. She could approximately guess what Luo Yubai had said to Yu Liuxing, otherwise there was no way she would look so awkward. "Just who does he think he is?" Xiao Moxian pouted. Yu Liuxing was frozen where she was, her face filled with an apologetic expression. Lin Ming didn't care about this at all. He indifferently said, "This person is an outstanding young elite of the Divine Runic Masters Guild and has an inborn sense of superiority. Unless you are an equally outstanding character, it is hard to enter his view." Luo Yubai's cold response hadn't surprised Lin Ming at all. This was because Yu Liuxing's status was insignificant to begin with. She was considered amongst the lowest echelons of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. As for the friends she invited over, they weren't Divine Runic Masters nor were they part of the Soul Race, and their cultivations were only at the peak of the early Divine Lord realm, so who would bother with seeing them? Imagine there is a successor of a royal family. One day, a son of a branch family with no status at all decides to invite his own common city friends for a visit. In the eyes of the world, it is impossible for that successor to treat those common city friends with any sense respect at all. In fact, that successor is likely disinclined to meet with them to begin with, because those common city friends have no value in his eyes. Currently, this other person views us in the same way. Lin Ming's words were all spoken with a true essence sound transmission. Xiao Moxian was still miffed after hearing this. What a snobby little bastard. I can beat up 10 of these people and still not be satisfied. It should be more than 10. Lin Ming smiled. But in terms of inscription technique, he can defeat me 100 to 1, I believe. Lin Ming self-deprecatingly said. These words were not modesty, they were the truth. Xiao Moxian also worried a little for Lin Ming after hearing this. Then how do you plan on learning? Learning these sorts of things will probably require a great deal of time. Yes, but I don't plan on taking a conventional approach. I have other methods available to me. I've never had much contact with the divine runic arts, so it's impossible for me to judge how much time it will take, but I believe that my speed of learning the divine runic arts will be at least 100 times faster than anyone else's. Lin Ming confidently said. Xiao Moxian was left stricken. 100 times? Something that would take someone else 100 years to learn, Lin Ming could learn in a single year? Miss you, about how old is this senior apprentice brother Luo of yours? Lin Ming only cared about how many years Luo Yubai had spent to become a third-grade divine runic master. Yu Liuxing thought about it for a while. He is over 400 years old. Over 400 years old. Could he have used 400 years to learn the divine runic arts? Lin Ming frowned. Although he was confident that he could quickly learn the divine runic arts, taking 400 years to become a third-grade divine runic master seemed a bit too much. How could it be so long? Senior apprentice brother Luo first started studying the divine runic arts when he reached the Divine Lord realm, so he has probably studied the divine runic arts for around 70 to 80 years. Studying the divine runic arts requires a tremendous amount of time, and you also need a ridiculously solid soul force as a support. Many martial artists first cultivate the martial path first before studying the divine runic arts. Me and my little brother are also the same. That is why we are only divine runic art apprentices right now. There is still a long road ahead of us, and we will continue to primarily focus on cultivating. So that's how it is. Lin Ming finally understood. When a martial artist was young, that was the prime time in their life to cultivate martial arts. From their teenage years to when they were several dozen years old, martial artists were in a constant race against time. The higher their cultivation achievements were in their youth, the more life potential they could dig out in the future, meaning that their future achievements would also be greater. If they placed too much time and energy in learning the divine runic arts, then the losses would simply outweigh the gains. 70 to 80 years to become a third-grade divine runic master, that is also acceptable. Lin Ming was constantly calculating the time he needed to learn the divine runic arts. If a divine runic arts talent like Luo Yubai needed 70 to 80 years to become a third-grade divine runic master, then if he could increase this speed by 100 times, Lin Ming could reach the same level in maybe 10 months. Of course, a third-grade divine runic master was far from reaching Lin Ming's requirements. He needed to become a divine runic grandmaster and also minor in alchemy. Only like this would he be able to refine the pills needed for the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. Chapter 1548, Broken Jade. Chapter 1548, Broken Jade. After entering the Divine Runic Masters Guild, the medicinal fragrance was much richer. If an ordinary pill were placed in the Divine Runic Masters Guild for a long time, then it would soak in the medicinal fragrance and become a medicinal pill. If a mortal were to breathe in this fragrance, then their mind would become sharper and they would become the #1 scholar of their country. If a martial artist lived here year-round, it would also be beneficial to their cultivation. The grounds of the Divine Runic Masters Guild, their walls, their stone tables and stone benches, and even their eating utensils were engraved with runes. These runes not only served decorative purposes, but they were themselves array formations that could do various things such as gathering origin energy or strengthening the use of tools. Miss you, I saw some people lining up outside the Divine Runic Masters Guild waiting for some test. Just what are they testing? Lin Ming asked as he followed behind Yu Liuxing. It seems that the Divine Runic Masters Guild is looking to recruit guards. Those people have all come to apply, Yu Liuxing casually said. Lin Ming was dumbfounded upon hearing this. Just for recruiting guards, so many people had come, and these people were all outstanding young elite. However, upon thinking about it further, this was also within reason. Not only was it easy to come into contact with great individuals within the Divine Runic Masters Guild, but one could also obtain high wages. Just the medicinal fragrance within the Divine Rune Pagoda would be greatly beneficial to their cultivation if they could inhale it daily. Lin Ming continued following Yu Liuxing through a number of winding corridors until they reached a broad hall. Within this grand hall, there were several neatly arranged rows of blue stone counters. These counters all had various alchemy and inscription tools on them. Standing behind some of these counters were young martial artists. These martial artists wore robes and were clearly busying themselves with working at the counters. A few old men sat on the sidelines, judging their work while they sipped on some tea and also occasionally gave pointers. It was clear that they were guiding their apprentices. Sir Lin, take a look. The one in a black and white robe is a divine runic master, and the one in a blue and red robe is an alchemist. The badges on their chest represent their grade. The more stripes there are, the higher their grade is. In Divine Rune City, alchemists and divine runic masters were separate. Although there were a massive number of alchemists in the Divine Runic Masters Guild, the reason that this organization was named by its divine runic masters was because their status was higher than alchemist. Lin Ming watched with his own eyes as a disciple completed a divine runic symbol and then placed it on a rock. The divine runic symbol immediately melted into the rock, fusing with it. Then, this hard rock shimmered with a brilliant light. After the light died down, it still glowed with a golden light, because it had actually turned into gold. This was truly turning stone into gold. Turning stone into gold was an immortal skill that mortals dreamed of. However, this was a useless ability to martial artists, because to them, gold was no different from iron. But, if someone were to tell Lin Ming to turn stone into gold just by touching it, then that wouldn't be something he could do. Let alone Lin Ming, not even a great world king could do this. In order to accomplish this miracle, one needed to be at least an Empyrean. This was because turning stone into gold involved changing the structure of matter, something that was part of the heavenly Tao laws. In truth, changing the structure of matter was violating the heavenly Tao laws. Although it wasn't the same as rebelling against the heavens, it was similar. If one wasn't an Empyrean or hadn't crossed heavenly tribulation, then it was impossible to do this. But in front of Lin Ming, a simple divine runic art had accomplished this. This was because in the Azura Road, divine runic arts represented the heavenly Tao, the will of God. Because of this, people changed this skill from inscription technique to the divine runic arts. After witnessing a divine runic master turn stone into gold, Lin Ming saw another divine runic master place a divine runic symbol into a basin of water. This water became increasingly thick, and before long, it had turned into oil. And, what startled Lin Ming the most was a middle-aged divine runic master with 3 stripes on his badge placing a divine runic symbol on a frog. This frog then transformed into a mouse. Although this wasn't particularly useful to a martial artist, this was actually an extraordinary ability. For a single divine runic symbol to turn stone into gold, turn water into oil, and even change the shape of a life form and turn a frog into a mouse, this was almost the same as the divine ability of creation. The legendary Azura Road is said to be created by the Azura Road Master. But, the title of the Azura Road Master is not a true divinity, but the creator. The Azura Sutra that he created is the cultivation method to control the power of divine creation and create an entire world. If one mastered the Azura Sutra, then it might really be possible to create an entirely new world. Unfortunately, I understand far too little about the Azura Sutra. Lin Ming sighed deeply. He was far too young, with less than 60 years of cultivation. There was a long road ahead of him. If one reached the highest levels of the divine runic arts, could one change grass into peak heavenly materials? Or change stones into 9 sun jades? If so, then to an 8th or 9th grade divine runic master, wealth has no meaning at all. Of course, Lin Ming was just thinking about this. He didn't doubt that wanting to transform something into top medicinal materials would require an absurdly high grade of divine runic symbol. It wouldn't be easy at all to draw up. As Lin Ming was thinking, he soon saw another divine runic master place a divine runic symbol onto a hoe. This hoe was an ordinary hoe used by mortal farmers on their farm. It was indeed stained with rust and time. But after this divine runic symbol was placed on it, the entire hoe shined with a divine light. Although its shape didn't change, the quality of this hoe had directly climbed up to a low-grade saint artifact. The rust fell off, revealing a pitch-black edge that shined with a cold light. Even the handle gained a strange elasticity that allowed one to bend it like a moon, and one could even use it to save strength and shatter a pillar of divine steel. In Lin Ming's eyes, this handle would make an excellent spear shaft. This is truly heaven-defying. As Lin Ming sighed with praise, he also understood that divine runic arts were limited to the Azura Road. Once one left the Azura Road, it would be impossible to use the divine runic arts because God runes did not exist outside of the Azura Road. The only exception would be if one could thoroughly pass the final test of the Azura Road and control the laws of the Azura Road for one's own use, instead of simply following them. Lin Ming could faintly feel that the Azura Road Master had in truth formed his own independent heavenly Tao, and although this heavenly Tao stood outside of the 33 heavenly Taos, it still stood on equal footing with them. To be able to create his own heavenly Tao laws, this sort of method was truly heart-shaking to hear. Without a doubt, after one's divine runic arts reached this level, even if there was a poor quality pill, if one were to place a high-grade divine runic symbol on it, it would become something far more profound. This was not something that the medicinal inscription symbols that Lin Ming learnt before could hope to compare with. After passing through this hall, Lin Ming and the others arrived at a side hall of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. This side hall was considerably large. It was the trade area of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. This trade area was completely different from the square around Divine Rune Pagoda. In the Divine Rune Pagoda square, there were all sorts of sounds, cries, and bargaining noises, just like a busy mortal market fair. But here, everything was quiet. The stall vendors lazily sat in their chairs. They might have been meditating or resting, as if these stalls had nothing to do with them at all. These vendors were all Divine Runic Masters or alchemists of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian approached a stall. The stall vendor reluctantly opened one eye to sweep over Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, then, he returned to meditating as if he hadn't seen them at all. This was because to the stall vendor, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian didn't resemble customers at all. They were as young as little babies, their cultivations weren't high, and they weren't divine runic masters or alchemists, so what could they possibly be doing here except taking a look? This stall vendor simply couldn't be bothered with attending to these customers who were only interested in window shopping. What sort of service is this? Xiao Moxian said, a bit indignantly. Ever since coming to the Divine Runic Masters Guild, she had been continuously ignored. First was that Luo Yubai who seemed to have his eyes on the top of his head. She wished that she could maliciously stomp on him as revenge. Now it was this old geezer, sitting there motionlessly like he was some almighty Buddha. How could Xiao Moxian be happy with this? Hey you, how do we buy these medicines? Xiao Moxian pointed towards a withered yellow root that looked like a radish and asked about this common-looking herb. She asked about this medicinal herb because she could feel a rich heaven and earth origin energy emanating from it. It clearly wasn't ordinary. The Divine Runic Master lazily opened an eye, glancing at Xiao Moxian from between the slits of his eyelids. He lightly said, "Your eyesight is all right, but you don't even know the name of this medicinal herb. You aren't a customer at all, but you're simply curious about all of this. If you're just going to waste my time, then don't bother disturbing me." After being exposed by the Divine Runic Master, Xiao Moxian squawked out loud, nearly choking on herself. Lin Ming smiled, saying, "Although we don't understand the Divine Runic arts, buying good materials is always useful. I also intend to dabble in the Divine Runic arts in the future, so I ask Senior to kindly inform us of the price." With Lin Ming's Divine Lord boundary cultivation, he was at the perfect time to begin learning the Divine Runic arts. But to this old Divine Runic Master, Lin Ming clearly didn't have any chance of learning anything because he was a human. He looked at Lin Ming with an annoyed look, as if he didn't want Lin Ming to continue bothering him. Then, he directly listed off the names of several materials as well as the price of the medicinal herb. This time, Lin Ming was left dumbfounded. He had never heard of these materials before, and according to the old man, he simply didn't accept origin energy runes. Rather, he wanted to barter, the most primitive form of trade. Realizing this, Lin Ming suddenly became aware. These vendors all held extremely high positions and didn't lack 9 sun jades or origin energy runes. What they lacked were materials and rare god runes, or superior top-grade pill furnaces for alchemy, or even top-grade pens for drawing up divine runic symbols. Thus, these vendors were mostly interested in bartering. They had no interest in origin energy runes because there were things that couldn't be purchased with origin energy runes. Lin Ming was able to confirm that he couldn't afford anything here. He hadn't even heard of these materials before, so what was there to buy? Lin Ming had no choice but to withdraw. The Divine Runic Master sighed, giving off an expression that he had long expected this. Then, He closed his eyes and returned to his meditation. This caused Xiao Moxian to be even more disgruntled. "Let's go," Lin Ming said. The reason he came to the Divine Runic Masters Guild was to see just what the divine runic arts were. Now that he had accomplished his goal, he could leave. All that remained was to learn the divine runic arts. However, just as Lin Ming was about to leave, he suddenly stopped where he was, no longer leaving. His eyes locked onto a table covered with random objects in front of the old divine runic master. Among these random items was a common-looking piece of broken jade, but as Lin Ming saw this jade, he was shocked. Chapter 1549, Buying Treasures. Chapter 1549, Buying Treasures. There were too many scattered items in front of the old divine runic master's stall. It was like he was too lazy to sort these things out and let them pile up in a messy bunch. Among these random items was a common piece of broken jade that was hidden by some other things. If it weren't for Lin Ming's extraordinary eyesight and a faintly familiar aura that he felt from this broken jade, then he would never have noticed it at all. Lin Ming silently squatted down in front of the old divine runic master's stall, quietly probing that broken jade. After a short period of time, he was able to confirm that he wasn't mistaken. Normally, someone old and well-taught like this old divine runic master vendor would have a vast amount of experience, and it should have been impossible for Lin Ming to find any hidden gems in his trove of random items. But this broken jade was too special. Besides Lin Ming, there was no one else who would have sensed anything special about it. Although this broken jade was only an inch in size and was extremely fragmented, there were faint lines on its surface. These lines revealed an aura, one that was the exact same as the Emperor Jade that Lin Ming had obtained from the Wheel of Destiny. When Lin Ming first entered the Azura Road, he had obtained the Emperor Jade. By relying on it, he had been able to enter the great desolate god trove hidden in the depths of the God-Burying Ridge. In God-Burying Ridge, the Emperor Jade had allowed Lin Ming to repeatedly overcome danger after danger, saving his life countless time. Could the Azura Roadmaster have left more than one piece of Emperor Jade? Was there a pair, or even more than a pair? Lin Ming didn't know why this Emperor Jade was broken. This little piece wasn't even a quarter of the size of a complete Emperor Jade, and it was also missing the most essential lines of an Emperor Jade. This would make perceiving anything from it nearly impossible. This divine runic master must have accidentally obtained this broken jade from somewhere, and although he could faintly feel that it was uncommon, he couldn't figure out just what it was. He likely thought it was only a fragment of an ancient top magic weapon, and thus he had brought it out to sell. Lin Ming began to leisurely look over every other item in the stall to prevent the old divine runic master from discovering his true purpose. At this time, the divine runic master vendor opened his eyes, saying, "You aren't a divine runic master and you also don't understand the materials that I have, and yet you still linger around here. Have you taken a fancy to my items? Or perhaps you think you found some treasure amongst my random goods that you would like to take from me?" As the old divine runic master spoke these words, Lin Ming felt his heart chill. This old geezer, he was far too vigilant. However, Lin Ming's behavior really couldn't be explained. What others wanted, Lin Ming didn't have, and as for the items that were placed out, Lin Ming had no idea what they were. If he continued to wander around here and look about, then that simply couldn't be justified. Lin Ming's thoughts turned and he immediately responded, "Senior shouldn't say that. Although this junior is nothing but an amateur layman when it comes to the divine runic arts and I also don't have any materials that senior wants, I have still decided to become a divine runic master in the future. I will eventually need to understand what these things are, and there are always some things that I have which senior might need. For instance, God runes. The God runes in the Azura Road were obtained through completing missions. Lin Ming had many rare blue soul runes as well as a few zenith black runes with him. A divine runic master's divine runic arts needed rare God runes. Only by combining these God runes with inscription did that form the divine runic arts. Lin Ming guessed that divine runic masters were normally busy with their own matters every day, so they almost never had time to go out in the greater Azura Road and complete missions. Thus, in order to obtain rare God runes they would trade for them here. This was why he thought of exchanging some treasures with God runes. You want to become a divine runic master? Hihi, the divine runic master vendor chuckled. Although hadn't done any evaluations, his meaning was obvious. In his opinion, a human wanting to become a divine runic master was no different from a toad wanting to eat swan meat. However, the divine runic master vendor was indeed interested in Lin Ming's god runes. He asked, "What god runes do you have? Let's take a look." Lin Ming didn't take out his god runes just yet. If this vendor saw that he had so many rare god runes, then he might ask for a ridiculous price. Lin Ming said, "If I dare to speak like this, then I naturally have quite a few in my inventory." As Lin Ming finished speaking, he continued looking at the random treasures. His original idea was to casually pick some items and then conveniently take the broken Emperor Jade too. However, he immediately rejected this after he thought of it. This was because besides the Emperor Jade fragment, the other items didn't need to be appraised at all. If he chose a random bunch of bargain items and then added on this strange Emperor Jade fragment once more, it would inevitably arouse the vendor's suspicions. It was clear that this vendor didn't understand just what the Emperor Jade fragment was, and Lin Ming lingering around here was suspicious to begin with. If he were to take the Emperor Jade fragment with a bunch of other things, then that would be far too suspicious. Thinking of this, Lin Ming directly took up the Emperor Jade fragment and then flipped it over a few times in his hand. He suddenly said to Xiao Moxian, "Xiana, I remember you said that your uncle wanted to refine his life's magic tool, but he needed to fuse in the treasure spirit of an Empyrean spirit treasure? A complete Empyrean spirit treasure would be too luxurious, but using a fragment should be more than enough. Since your uncle's 103,000th grand birthday celebration is coming up, then how about I make a gift of this spirit treasure fragment?" Lin Ming was simply making things up on the spot. Where did Xiao Moxian have an uncle that needed an Empyrean spirit treasure to refine his life's magic tool? But Xiao Moxian was a smart young woman. She immediately realized that Lin Ming wanted to hide his intentions of buying this broken jade and avoid the suspicion of the old man. Could this broken jade be a treasure? Xiao Moxian felt this all a bit too unbelievable. But whether or not Lin Ming's judgment was correct, she wouldn't ruin his play anyways. Without revealing a puzzled expression, she slapped on the most helpless look that she could. With a thick embarrassment in her tone, she said, "Sir Lin, don't you think that this gift is a bit too sad? My uncle's celebration will have people coming from all sides, and if you only take out a spirit treasure fragment, then don't you think it's a bit pitiful to take out? You should know that my uncle handles most decisions of my family. If he has a poor impression of you, then I'm afraid that our matters will be." Xiao Moxian immediately responded with her own play. Lin Ming was left a bit stunned. Wasn't her acting a bit too good? Hearing Xiao Moxian call this gift a bit sad, the divine runic master vendor's lips twitched. This was equal to saying that he was selling trash. Just what sort of noble status was a divine runic master? He had lived to his old age and had a great deal of face, and yet right now he was insulted by a little girl. How could he be happy about this at all? "Do you want to buy it or not?" The old divine runic master coldly coughed. Lin Ming quickly apologized. "Senior has misunderstood the situation. This junior didn't mean it like that. I only meant to say that this magic weapon fragment has the lowest value out of all of Senior's goods, but even so, it would bleed out far too much wealth from me. May I ask just how much this magic weapon fragment is?" "Heh, you don't need to flatter me into forgetting," the old man sneered. He stared at Lin Ming and then said, 10 blue soul runes." Lin Ming's heart skipped a beat as he heard this. He knew the approximate cost of an Empyrean spirit treasure fragment as well as the cost of a blue soul rune. 10 blue soul god runes for this fragment was far too outrageous. Although Lin Ming could afford 10 blue soul runes, he still felt that this old vendor was cheating him. If he agreed, not only would he make himself seem suspicious, but this old man might not even sell it to him anymore. 10 blue soul runes? Are you joking with me? As a senior, should you really be trying to butcher a junior like this? The most I can offer you is 3. As Lin Ming spoke, he raised 3 fingers and 3 blue soul runes floated above his fingertips. Lin Ming had taken special care in choosing these 3 blue soul runes. Although their value wasn't too high, they were still quite rare among blue soul runes. They couldn't be bought with mere money. Lin Ming wanted to stir up this old divine runic master's interest. However, Lin Ming never thought that as soon as the old divine runic master saw these 3 runes, he would immediately grab back the Emperor Jade fragment. Lin Ming inwardly grimaced. Could this old man not be planning on selling to him anymore? If the old divine runic master didn't plan on selling to Lin Ming, then Lin Ming didn't have anything else he could do, he could only leave. Otherwise, if Lin Ming offered a higher price, the old man's suspicions would be even higher, finally only having the opposite effect. The old man flipped the broken jade in his hands several times, carefully probing it and using his sense to evaluate it. This process continued for an entire incense stick of time. This old man had already appraised this item many times before. In the Divine Runic Masters Guild, the Divine Runic Masters were generally on good terms with each other. When others evaluated this item, they also came up with a similar appraisal. This sort of magic weapon fragment was likely of the Empyrean Spirit Treasure rank. This wasn't too tempting to the old man. If it weren't for the strange lines that covered this piece of jade, he would have already dealt with it. An Empyrean Spirit Treasure wasn't priceless even if complete, it would be far lower in value than a transcendent divine might. This was because an Empyrean would at most be able to form a single transcendent divine might in their life, if at all. As for Empyrean Spirit Treasures, they would create several of them. An incomplete Empyrean Spirit Treasure was even less valuable. Its only use was, as Lin Ming had said, to draw out its artifact spirit and form one's own treasure. Finally, the old man handed the broken jade to Lin Ming. He coldly said, 3 blue soul runes, for you. Hearing these words, Lin Ming finally relaxed. This old fellow was cautious and stingy to the point that he could squeeze oil from sand. A junior had chosen one of his items and even given a good reason for doing so, yet he had actually taken it back to look over several times. 3 blue soul runes was a bit high for an Empyrean spirit treasure fragment, but it wasn't too outrageous. Lin Ming feared that the runes he took out weren't able to move the old divine runic master. If so, he could only leave. Otherwise, the more he tried to barter, the more suspicious the old man would be. It seemed that Xiao Moxian's performance just now was a bit more effective than he thought. Lin Ming handed over the 3 blue soul runes and finally bought what he wanted. As for the old man, he was satisfied with the 3 blue soul runes Lin Ming had put forth, he had indeed needed them. Chapter 1550, Undying Medicine. Chapter 1550, Undying Medicine. In order to prevent any more problems occurring, after Lin Ming bought his item, he took a few more circles around and then bid his farewells to Yu Liuxing and Yu Qifeng. Together with Xiao Moxian, he left the Divine Runic Masters Guild. Lin Ming, what is that thing you bought? Xiao Moxian couldn't help but ask Lin Ming with a sound transmission as soon as they left. Her curiosity had gotten the better of her. If I'm not wrong, then this should be something left behind by the Azura Roadmaster. Lin Ming honestly replied. Xiao Moxian was startled upon hearing this. The Azura Roadmaster. In the Azura Road, the Azura Roadmaster was the true divine god. Anything related to him, even if it was only a tiny fragment, was astoundingly valuable. No wonder Lin Ming had tried so hard to buy this piece of broken jade. What use does this have? I have no idea at present. But no matter what, we're headed back to Heaven's Secret for now. You want to return to Heaven's Secret? Xiao Moxian asked, surprised. They had just left from there not too long ago. What do you want to go to Heaven's Secret for? There's some information I need. This information is extremely important for me to learn the divine runic arts. The divine runic arts were broad and all-encompassing. In order to study them, one needed to invest a massive amount of time and energy while accumulating a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience. What Lin Ming lacked the most now was time. Even if he had the Azura Sutra supporting him, it was impossible to do all of this overnight, and if all of this took too much time, then it was meaningless to Lin Ming. After several hours, Lin Ming arrived at Heaven's Secret once more. This time, Lin Ming had chosen to change his appearance. Although Heaven's Secret sold all sorts of information, what they wouldn't reveal was what sort of information their guests had inquired about. This was one of the most basic rules of an intelligence network. Otherwise there would be no guest that would be able to ask for information in confidence, lest they be looked up by others. Even so, Lin Ming felt it was safe to change his appearance. After all, the information he was seeking now was highly sensitive. "Sir, what would you like to inquire about?" the doorman asked Lin Ming at the entrance to Heaven's Secret. "Divine Runic Masters." "What rank?" "5th rank and above." "Then please go to the 5th floor," the doorman respectfully said. This was the same floor as last time. After reaching the 5th floor with Xiao Moxian, Lin Ming took up the wooden sign marked with people and then was led to the corresponding room. In this room, there was a blue-clothed old man waiting for Lin Ming. The old man sat in the back of the room, separated from guests by a hanging curtain. He spoke to Lin Ming through this curtain. "What would you like to know?" The old man's voice was hoarse and gritty, as if he were in the waning years of his life. "I want information on divine runic masters and alchemists. I do not want any divine runic masters from the Divine Runic Masters Guild. They must live outside of Divine Rune City and should preferably have strange and eccentric personalities. They need to be people who have committed all sorts of sinful and evil deeds. I need their location, their cultivation methods, their cultivation boundaries, an approximation of their strength, what influences support them, and all other related information. Moreover, the Divine Runic Masters should be at the 5th grade or above. At the very least they must be at the 4th grade. The blue-clothed old man was surprised as he listened to Lin Ming. "The information you want is extremely detailed, so our price will be very high. This is also because if we betray the information of these individuals, our Heaven's Secret might offend them." Heaven's Secret was an intelligence network and thus they inevitably collected information on great influences and important figures. If they sold this information to others they were likely to offend them, especially if they sold this information to their enemies or other hostile groups. Thus, Heaven's Secret would be very careful with what sort of information they sold. If they couldn't offend the individual, then they would never sell the information no matter how high the price. As for those that they could offend, the price would be exorbitantly high. An intelligence network was involved in all aspects of the world. If their background wasn't deep enough and they aroused the anger of some people, it was possible that they would be dug up and eliminated. Information on divine runic masters is sensitive to begin with. There are often many complex relationships behind these divine runic masters. Luckily, you don't want any information about divine runic masters that are a part of the Divine Runic Masters Guild, otherwise no matter how many origin energy runes you offered we still wouldn't sell it to you. If you want information on divine runic masters that have been exiled outside of Divine Rune City, then I can actually provide some information to you. There are a few pieces of information I have which aren't too involved with the greater influences. Each piece of information will be charged according to the detail as well as the grade of the Divine Runic Master, and they will be around 500 million to 700 million origin energy runes each. As the blue-clothed old man said these words, even though Lin Ming had already been prepared for this, he still felt his heart drip blood. This was indeed ridiculously expensive. Although he was wealthy, during all his years in the Azura Road, he had never earned money, only spent it, and he had spent a great deal of it too. Lin Ming didn't have too many 9 sun jades left on him. Lin Ming took out a piece of white jade and poured his divine sense into it, further detailing his requests. He wanted to know their strength, cultivation, moral behavior, temperament, and so forth. He also only wanted those evil and demonic people. As for divine runic masters that were highly respected and noble characters, he didn't want them at all. After the blue-clothed old man looked through the white jade, he said, "There are a total of 3 individuals that match your request. The total price will be 1.6 billion millimeter." Lin Ming took a deep breath and fished out some 9 sun jades from his spatial ring. After he lined them up, he said, "Tell me everything." "All right." The blue-clothed old man wrote down 3 sections of information on a jade slip. Lin Ming took the jade slip and recorded all the information in his mind. Then, he and Xiao Moxian left Heaven's Secret. 100,000 miles southeast of Divine Rune City, there was a remote mountain. People rarely visited this mountain, and deep in a valley of it was a lake that stretched for 10 miles, named Star Lake. As night arrived each evening, Star Lake would be filled with the night winds. The reflection of starlight would shine down on the lake, making it seem like a stretch of liquid silver, beautiful to the eyes. On one side of Star Lake was an ancient castle. This castle was built with obsidian, and had already stood here for 100,000 years. A part of the castle extended into the lake, leaving a black reflection on the surface. Looking at this black reflection, one felt a sense of peace and quiet. However, no one imagined that such a beautiful and wondrous place was in truth a den of darkest evils. Within the castle, there was a completely sealed-off space. The floors were made of pale red tiles and the walls were dark grey. Pill furnaces and divine runic tables were scattered all about, making it seem messy and chaotic. On these stone tables and on the walls, there were black stains. These stains were left by dried-up blood. In the center of this space, there was a row of metal frames, dozens of them altogether. But, what was startling was that on every metal frame, there was a young girl tied up. These young girls were in rags and some were even naked. The oldest of them were in their 20s, and there were even those that were 16 to 17. The youngest among them looked to be around 11 to 12, with a few 13 to 14-year-olds placed throughout. Every girl was covered with scars. These scars were found on their necks, thighs, chests, stomachs, and wrists. There were knife wounds, scratches, and even bite marks. Some wounds were intentionally afflicted, and some seemed specifically designed to let out blood. After suffering for such a long time, all of these girls were in the depths of despair, their eyes without light, like dying embers. If it weren't for their faint heartbeat and breathing, one might even think that they were dead. Although they had been tortured into such states, one could still the beauty that hid behind their dirty faces and disheveled hair. It was clear that these were once proud beauties of different races. There were humans, monsters, demons, and even saint. In fact, not only were they beauties of different races, but there were those amongst them with relatively high levels of martial talent. Some had special physiques, variation bloodlines, or variation dantians. Some girls were martial artists. There were those at the Xiantian realm, and even some at the revolving core realm. But now, their cultivations had been sealed away, they were no different from ordinary mortal girls. If one were to send these girls to large influences, then although they might not have been peak geniuses, they should still have become inner court disciples. If one raised them with enough effort, then there were high chances that they would reach the Divine Lord realm in the future. But now, all of that was impossible. Their lives would be buried in the horrendous and despairing castle. Some of these people had been kidnapped, and some had been bought as slaves. Of them, most were mortals that had never cultivated before. They were simply unable to withstand the inhuman torture. Without a doubt, they would die from suffering in just several months. But those who cultivated had already been trapped in this castle for several years. After being tortured night and day for several years, the average person would have suffered mental collapse or died. But, the master of this castle was an alchemist, and with all sorts of miracle pills and medicines, wanting to die was nearly impossible. This castle master would even use dangerous pills to heighten the cultivation boundary of these girls, digging out their life potential and then stealing it away. What awaited them was a lifetime of endless suffering and pain. Only when their essence energy and blood vitality was sucked dry, only when their youth and strength had faded, would they be abandoned and buried in the back gardens of the castle. Seemingly because of the presence of their skeletons, the flowers in the back gardens bloomed especially bright. At this time, the space barriers of this hidden space suddenly shook violently. A man's roar echoed out within it. Trash! Trash! Damn it all! Bang! With an explosive sound, something seemed to detonate. Stone tables were flipped over and pill furnaces were tossed away, bouncing all over. A pale man with greyish-white hair rushed in like a rabid beast. This man wore tattered robes and he looked to be middle-aged, but there was not a trace of blood on his face and a faint death aura percolated around his body. This meant that his life was nearing its end. I failed again. The life-lifting, undying pill. Just how many times have I failed? The man's eyes were blood-red, seeming as if he were about to go crazy. He was a spiritus, but the faint soul glow that symbolized the soul race had already vanished. This was a sign that his fires of life had diminished and his life was nearing its end. He would have at most another 100 years to live. He dreamed to refine an endless life immortality pill. For this pill, he had refined for 10,000 years already. He thought that he would never be able to successfully complete the refining of this pill before he died, thus in the last several hundred years, he had been refining the lower quality life-lifting undying pill. He wanted to lengthen his life, even if it were only by several hundred years. Chapter 1551, Sex Fiend Torch River. Chapter 1551, Sex Fiend Torch River. I am a 6th grade divine runic master and 8th grade alchemist. How could I fail here? The spiritus man seemed to teeter on the edge of insanity. It's impossible for me to fail. It must be because the blood essence quality of you whores is insufficient. The man pulled on a girl's hair, causing her to scream out in pain and fear. Towards this scene, most of the other girls still had dead expressions on their faces, as if they didn't see anything at all. But there were some girls that hadn't been here long enough who trembled as they saw this, panic coloring their complexions. Here, besides being raped and having their essence energy stolen, this crazy divine runic master would sometimes use their flesh and blood to refine pills. They had witnessed some of their companions being tossed alive into a pill furnace in order to refine life-lifting undying pills. To life forms with an intelligence of their own, death was an extremely terrifying matter. Upon approaching death, many people would turn crazy and lose all sense of reasoning. In just the mortal world alone, when some kings were on the verge of death, they would use the strength of their entire nation to find life-extending medicines. These kings would have alchemists take virgin boys and girls and use their flesh and blood for alchemy. Some kings even specifically raised 12 to 13-year-old virgin girls to take their menstrual blood every month to refine pills, and in order to guarantee the virgin purity of their menstrual blood, they would only allow them to eat berries and drink morning dew. In the martial world, this insanity could reach the limit. In particular, if an alchemist feared death, this would intensify everything he did. What a pity, if I could capture a proud daughter of heaven who reached the divine transformation realm before her 60th cultivation year, and then refine her virgin blood essence into a pill, I would definitely be able to live on for another 100 more years. The spiritus man spoke as if he had lost his soul, his gestures bizarre and ghostly. Many years ago, this spiritus man had been an elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild and also had a World King cultivation. As a 6th grade Divine Runic Master, 8th grade alchemist, and even an elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild, this spiritus man was blessed with endless brilliant halos around him. There were countless influences that curried his favor, and even sect leaders of great World King influences had to treat him with politeness and respect. As for his disciples and followers in the Divine Runic Masters Guild, there was no need to mention them. They wouldn't even dare disobey him in the least. His prestige had been as high as the sun, and he lived a life where he was the center of countless stars. There were countless people that respected and admired him, and there were even many female divine runic arts apprentices that willingly offered themselves to him for a higher status, allowing him to do whatever he wished to them. After tasting these young girls, the spiritus man began to seduce them on his own initiative, bringing in many young girls as his toys. He had held the post of elder for tens of thousands of years, and countless women had been ruined and deceived by him. As for the disciples he received, they tended to be women, and many of these disciples also had to simultaneously serve as his living furnaces. Towards this spiritus man who was obsessed with obscene desires, even immortals couldn't compare to the lavish lifestyle he lived. He wasn't satisfied with his World King cultivation, and he wasn't satisfied with being an ordinary elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. He wanted to become a Red Robe Elder, and he wanted to become a great World King. He used all methods at his disposal to grab more resources and take advantages of anyone he could. Time and time again he formed deep grudges with others within the Divine Runic Masters Guild, and with his continued violating of young female apprentices, he was finally impeached by the Council of Red Robe Elders and was removed from his post of elder. This was something he remembered and something he bore a deep grudge towards. During a trip into a dangerous mystic realm, he tried to wrest away sole possession of a miracle medicine while also killing the Divine Runic Master Elder who had proposed to impeach him. But in the end he was defeated. Not only did he fail to obtain the miracle medicine, but he was even beaten to the ground and severely wounded. Afterwards, he was expelled from the Divine Runic Masters Guild. Some people wanted to finish him off and cut off the disease at the roots. He fled to the open sea, living a life of seclusion for tens of thousands of years. It was only when his arch-enemy died during an exploratory trip into a mystic realm did he show himself again. But when he reappeared, his lifespan was nearing its end. Not just that, but in the past when he was injured in the mystic realm he had also wounded his divine soul, causing his lifespan to be drastically reduced. During these past years, he had done everything at his disposal to refine life-extending pills and pills to restore his divine soul. But, because the foundation of his life force was mostly destroyed, every effort he made was nearly useless to begin with. As his day of death approached closer and closer, he had fallen into a state of madness. He was too obsessed with his previous life of endless glory and joys and wasn't able to endure the loneliness and desolation until his end. He bought a large number of young women, venting his rage on their bodies and using their blood essence to refine pills. Finally, he built his evil castle of sin on the shores of Star Lake. Because his divine sense had been damaged and he had thrown his entire being into refining life-extending pills, he had no intention or desire to refine other pills. Thus, to many great influences he had lost all value, with none of them bothering with him. Because of this, he could only steal away a limited number of resources. Wanting to obtain the proud daughter of heaven that he needed was impossible. Thus, of the young girls in Castle, most of them were simply mortal women with extremely high levels of martial talent. Bang! This nearly crazed spiritus man flipped over a stone table and then threw himself onto a young 16-year-old girl. This young girl only had a pulse condensation cultivation. She had been born in the Azura Road and had once been the core disciple of a tiny sect. This sect was far too small. One could say that it was situated between the martial world and the mortal world. In her sect, this young girl had been a proud daughter of heaven, admired by countless young disciples. But in a single night, her entire sect was exterminated. All beauties, all young women with any level of talent, were rolled up in a black wind and brought to this hellish castle. The one who destroyed her sect was this spiritus man. To her, his world king cultivation was an incomprehensible existence. This fiend didn't immediately rape these women. Rather, he used their virgin blood to refine pills, but unfortunately for him, his efforts failed again and again. This caused him to become even more insane. As he threw himself onto this young 16-year-old girl, he ripped away the remnants of her tattered clothes. In that moment, the young girl was left entirely naked. Her face was pale and she pitifully screamed out. But, this scream seemed to stimulate the spiritus man, causing his eyes to light up with a blood-red color. These last years had been endless pain to him, and only by making others feel this pain was he able to be satisfied. He licked his lips, demonically grinning as he said, "Your whorish blood is too low quality, causing me to fail in refining my undying pills. Since that's the case, keeping your virgin body around any longer is useless. I will suck dry the little primordial yin that you have." As the spiritus man cackled, he bit down on her pale shoulder, greedily sucking up her blood. What he was doing was not just drinking her blood but also absorbing her blood essence, using it to restore his declining fires of life. The young girl crazily struggled, but the more she struggled the more it seemed to arouse this bestial demon. His pupils had gone wide and his entire body was excited. He tore off his own clothes, pressing himself onto her. But, just when he was about to thrust into her body, he stiffened and his enlarged pupils rapidly contracted. In that instant just now, he had felt a sense sweep through this sealed-off space, and soon afterwards, a deep killing intent had locked onto him. Without thinking, he threw himself forward. Bang! With a terrifying explosion of energy, a spear light pierced through the void like a 100,000-foot rainbow. Under this unstoppable divine light, the space barrier that sealed off this area was torn apart like paper. Not just that, but half of the obsidian castle immediately collapsed. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Stones tumbled as walls came falling down all around. The spiritus man's hideout was destroyed. A young man and woman floated in the air. The man grasped a spear, his eyes shimmering with killing intent. He pointed his spear right towards the Spiritus man's head. You are sex fiend divine runic master Torch River. Lin Ming's voice dripped with murder as he glared at this Spiritus man. Lin Ming's request towards Heaven's Secret was that he wanted a 5th grade or above divine runic master who had an ordinary world king cultivation or below, who had no influences, or only weak influences behind them, and did all sorts of evil and sinful deeds. The information of the first divine runic master that Heaven's Secret had given to him was that of this sex fiend Torch River. In his life he had raped countless women and he had developed a grotesquely infamous reputation within the divine runic masters guild. Finally, he had been banished by them. Lin Ming never imagined that this Torch River would go so mad as he neared the end of his life. During these past years, it was unknown how many young girls had died beneath his hands. Not even dying 10,000 times would make up for his sins. Near Lin Ming, Xiao Moxian tightly clenched her jaw. She had borne witness to everything that had happened. To see other women harmed like this, her rage had already reached its limits. Lin Ming, do not kill him. Leave him a sliver of life. I want him to experience a life that is worse than death. Chapter 1552, Divine Runic Master Shortcut. Chapter 1552, Divine Runic Master Shortcut. Who are you? To be ambushed just as he was about to rape someone, Torch River was burning with rage. His eyes were blood red, as if he wanted to devour Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. But at this time, he noticed Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's cultivations. They were only at the Divine Lord realm. Were they hiding their cultivation? No, that wasn't right. They were extraordinary young elites. Torch River had raped countless women in his life, and he usually only preyed on young girls. Thus, he was very sensitive to the life auras that surrounded young girls, so he could confirm that Xiao Moxian wasn't very old. So young, and yet they had reached the Divine Lord realm. Just how had they cultivated? This discovery caused Torch River's eyes to shine brilliantly. A variation bloodline. She must possess a variation bloodline. A proud daughter of heaven, and she also has a variation bloodline. If I can use her blood as medicine and eat her up every day, then perhaps I really might be able to heal the wound to my divine soul. I will be able to live for thousands more years and complete my immortality pill. Torch River suddenly cackled. The heavens haven't abandoned me. They haven't abandoned me. What I lack is a proud daughter of heaven for my alchemy, and yet you have delivered yourself right to my door. Good. Very good. You will become my living furnace. We shall dual cultivate every day and I will bring you to paradise. As Torch River spoke, he lewdly stared at Xiao Moxian. This caused Xiao Moxian to nearly burst apart with rage. Lin Ming, dig out his eyes, slice out his tongue, and cripple his cultivation. I want to slice off his flesh and slowly torture him for 100 years, 1,000 years with every slice. Xiao Moxian came from a demon and monster bloodline to begin with. She was no blindly puerile and benevolent person. How could she allow herself to be insulted in such a way? Haha, if I haven't misunderstood, then you are only 2 martial artists at the Divine Lord realm. Your talent is a bit better than those of your generation, and yet you think you can kill me? You are insane. Even though my cultivation boundary has dropped, I am still a half-step world king. Catching you 2 is the same as catching 2 chickens. Torch River raved. He turned to Lin Ming and chortled again and again. Is this your little lover boy? Very well, then I shall use him for my alchemy right in front of you. Before Torch River finished speaking, his complexion suddenly changed. He could feel a vast and deep killing intent cover him. Then, the surrounding world changed. The world fell away, the stars vanished, and everything was isolated from him. He was completely trapped in a sealed-off space. Force field. Torch River immediately realized that this black-clothed youth had surrounded him with a force field. For such a genius, it wasn't a surprise if they had a force field. But, what astonished Torch River was that this force field formed an incomparably stable space, far surpassing the limits of any Divine Lord realm martial artist. There were even many holy lords who couldn't compare to this. Interesting, such talent even causes me to be more inspired to turn you into a pill, Torch River said, brilliantly staring at Lin Ming. Lin Ming coldly sneered, The information that Heaven's Secret gave me said that you have already fallen to the brink of madness, but now it seems that not only are you mad but you are also stupid. Your cultivation has fallen to a half-step world king, and with your fires of life nearly extinguished, even among half-step world kings you are the weakest. A talented late Holy Lord martial artist would already be able to brutally murder you, and yet you continue to dream on. Now die. As Lin Ming spoke, he hurtled himself forwards. Although his speed wasn't fast, his figure was as calm and stable as a mountain. 9 stars of the Dao Palace, Purple Temple Dao Palace. Lin Ming revolved his strength to the limit and smashed his spear down at Torch River. Because the 9 stars of the Dao Palace had been lost for far too long a time, and in addition to the changes that occurred in the heavenly Dao laws, it had become extremely difficult to practice. But this difficulty meant that it had become even stronger than before. Although there was no text that stated how the different levels of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace corresponded to the different ranks in the essence gathering system, Lin Ming could approximately confirm that opening a single star in the 9 stars of the Dao Palace far surpassed the early Divine Lord realm of the essence gathering system. In other words, although Lin Ming appeared to be an early Divine Lord, the truth was that when he combined the cultivation of his body transformation and essence gathering systems, he already far surpassed that. Torch River naturally couldn't understand Lin Ming's 9 stars the Dao Palace. He simply grinned, saying, "Since you want to die, allow me to help you along." Torch River took out a deep red sword from his spatial ring and then slashed out at Lin Ming. He wanted to crush Lin Ming's spear light and cut apart Lin Ming's body at the same time. However, just when his sword light came into contact with the Phoenix blood spear, Torch River's smile froze. The spear light he thought he could easily tear apart actually contained a horrifying strength beyond description. It was like this spear light was formed from heavy stars, able to collapse space and cut through galaxies. Catcher! With an explosive sound, Torch River's sword light shattered. The red spear thrust towards Torch River's chest. This spear had locked down Torch River and locked down the space around him. It was impossible to dodge. Even Torch River's blood vitality rebelled, as if it wanted to break free from his body. What? Seeing this spear light rush towards him, Torch River immediately paled. He thought that killing a junior like Lin Ming would be as easy as turning his hand. He never imagined that this would be the result. This youth's strength was powerful beyond understanding. Although this spear hadn't pierced him yet, what he knew was that even if he didn't die, this spear strike would still severely wound him and cause him to lose all combat strength. In this life or death moment, Torch River punched his own chest and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. This blood essence formed a mysterious symbol in the air. At the same time, Torch River pulled out 2 divine runic symbols from his spatial ring. He thrust them outwards, causing them to burn in the air. After these 2 divine runic symbols burned, they turned into a protective barrier that received Lin Ming's spear strike. Catcher! With an explosive sound, Lin Ming's Phoenix blood spear smashed into this translucent barrier. In a brief moment, the barrier exploded and the spear continued thrusting ahead, driving into the blood symbol that Torch River spat out. And at this time, Lin Ming finally felt a tremendous existence. The Phoenix blood spear suddenly slowed down, startling Lin Ming. He had used an arcane technique to strengthen himself, causing the might of this strike to reach the power of 5 dragons, and yet he hadn't been able to kill this Torch River who had fallen in cultivation boundary and had nearly lost all his blood vitality. Without a doubt, this was the work of the divine runic arts. Torch River had thrown out 2 divine runic symbols to lessen Lin Ming's spear potential and had then used a divine runic symbol formed from his own blood to resist Lin Ming's all-out strike. The divine runic arts could be used for more than assisting in alchemy, they could be used in combat. However, relying on this alone was not enough to change Torch River's fate. As the Phoenix blood spear was blocked by the blood symbol, Lin Ming's thoughts moved and a shadow rushed out from his inner world, hurtling towards Torch River. This was Lin Ming's essence spirit embryo avatar. It dwelled in Lin Ming's inner world and could rush out at any time to fight. After absorbing Tian Mingzi and the other's blood energy, the essence spirit embryo stone had broken through yet another boundary. In terms of mortal bodily strength, it far surpassed Lin Ming. Ca. The essence spirit embryo stone thrust a spear towards Torch River, aiming to take his head. Torch River cried out in alarm, scared out of his mind. A single Lin Ming was already as terrifying as a life-reaping ghost. Only by sacrificing a great portion of his remaining life was he able to form this divine runic symbol of blood to barely resist the attack, and now another Lin Ming had appeared. Peng! With a cracking sound, Torchriver's protective energy was unable to withstand the terrifying strength of the Essence Spirit Embryo Stone. In just a moment, Torchriver's defenses collapsed and the Avatar's spear pierced through his chest. The long spear penetrated through Torchriver's body. In front of the horrifying strength of the Essence Spirit Embryo Stone, the frail mortal body of a Spiritus was no different than paper. A massive amount of flesh and bones were twisted by this dreadful strength. Torchriver's body was pierced through like a water bag, blood leaking out from all over him. How is this possible? Torchriver's eyes filled with despair and disbelief. He had been easily defeated by a mere Divine Lord Jr. and would die here. How could he accept such a ridiculous result? Pulse-cutting palm. Lin Ming smashed his hand into Torchriver's chest. A savage and wild true essence rushed through Torchriver's body, tearing apart every single meridian within him and severing the power of his blood vitality. In that moment, Torchriver's body fell down from the air like a rag doll. In a strange coincidence, he fell into the sealed space where the young girls were imprisoned. Puff! As the crippled Torch River plopped to the floor, his blood splashed out. The young girls who were imprisoned stared helplessly on. This unbelievably powerful Torch River had fallen to the ground like a dead dog, leaving all of them stunned. Was this a dream? Torch River still had a single breath of life remaining. Lin Ming had intentionally kept Torch River alive, because the shortcut for him to become a divine runic master was in Torchriver's body. Chapter 1553, Refine the Soul. Chapter 1553, Refine the Soul. These girls that had been tortured by Torch River over so many years had already anticipated that they would die here. They had lost themselves to despair long ago and there was nothing left that could stir anything in their hearts. But at this moment, they saw that cruel and godlike Torch River fall onto the floor in a completely inhuman mess, on the verge of death. Then, a faint spark of hope ignited in their stunned eyes. After being beneath the agonizing abuse of Torch River for so many years, even if they saw him about to die, they still couldn't believe it. They were afraid that this was all a dream. At this time, Lin Ming floated down with his long spear in hand. Seeing Lin Ming descend like a god from heaven, the young girls were left in a daze. You're free. Lin Ming flicked his fingers and several true essence arrows shot forth, cutting the chains that shackled these young girls. Even the energy seals within their bodies were lifted. The moment that their shackles were cut, because many of the girls were weak and their muscles had atrophied, they fell onto the floor. The pain from this fall finally made them believe that this scene in front of them was real and not a dream. As they felt the rough ground, they also felt the freedom that they hadn't had for such a long time. Their bodies shivered. It wasn't known who started crying out first, but the girls couldn't help but weep one after another. They didn't know who this young man was, but in their hearts, this young man was their God and their savior. Even if they had to take care of him for their entire lives, they were willing to do so. Even if this youth wanted them all to die here, they would still comply without blinking. This was because when they were imprisoned by Torch River, they didn't even have the ability to commit suicide. They had lived a life worse than death. Looking at these young girls, Lin Ming sighed in pity for them, lamenting their fates. Many of them had a decent talent for cultivating martial arts, but their lives were mostly destroyed. Lin Ming flicked his fingers again and dozens of pills flew into the hands of these young girls. Lin Ming had given them miracle pills to make up for their lost blood vitality and to wash their marrow. These young girls were abused by Torch River and their blood vitality had been mostly sucked dry. Each of them had a pale white face and their yin energy was lacking. If they wanted to continue cultivating martial arts in this sort of condition, it would be impossibly difficult to do so. Normally, the lower cultivation a martial artist was, the worse their bloodline was, the easier it was to make up for lost blood vitality. The higher one's cultivation was, the greater one's bloodline, and the more one's talent defied the heavens, then the more difficult it would be to make up for lost blood vitality. But as for martial artists with low cultivation, although it was relatively easy to make up for lost blood vitality, they were simply far too weak to find the necessary blood tonics and pills to do so. Thus, for a martial artist at a low cultivation to make up for lost blood vitality was extremely difficult. For these young girls, it was simply impossible. However, this was a simple task for Lin Ming. To him, these pills weren't precious at all, but to these starry-eyed girls, these were unrivaled miracle medicines. Most of these young girls were common mortals. Even if they were to walk down the road of martial arts, they would only be able to reach the pulse condensation, Hutian, or Xiantian realms. To them a heaven-opening pill would be a priceless treasure, much less these miracle pills that Lin Ming handed out. Take these. These are all pills with moderate properties. Even though your bodies are weak, there won't be any side effects. Lin Ming gently said. As these girls held the miracle pills in their hands, their fingers began to shiver. Although they didn't know what grade these pills were, they could approximate their value from the rich medicinal fragrance wafting off them. Because of this, there were some girls that held the pills tightly in their hands, not willing to swallow them. Lin Ming sighed again as he saw this. This was the life of low-level, mortal martial artists. To a high-level martial artist, things that they casually tossed to the side of the road were incomparably precious treasures to these low-level martial artists. Lin Ming waved his hand once more and shot out some more pills. This time, the pills were thrust right into these girls' mouths. Rest well. You all may leave whenever you wish, or you may also stay here. 3 days from now, I will bring you to the nearest mortal city. I suggest that you wait, because the nearest mortal city is 10,000 miles away. Here is something to tide you over for the next few days. Lin Ming tossed out a bottle of fasting pills. This was the limit to which he could help these young girls. Their future days and the paths they chose to take would rely on themselves. After thinking some more, he said, "You all possess talent to cultivate the martial arts. In the future, if you can walk far down that road, then perhaps the bitter and painful experiences of your youths might not be a bad thing." As Lin Ming finished speaking, he no longer delayed. He picked up the nearly dead Torch River and flew away. Left behind, the many young girls watched Lin Ming's fading back, their eyes lost in thought. The fragrance of the medicinal pills was still in their mouths, and the warm medicinal efficacy nourished their bodies, soothing their pain. In their lives, this was probably the happiest moment they had experienced. Sometimes, setbacks and frustrations weren't bad. These experiences could allow a person to mature at the fastest speed possible. If a person grew up without experiencing any problems, then it was hard to temper their personality and will. Xiao Moxian was similar. Only in the 9 years within tragic Death Valley had she matured in mind. Lin Ming brought the near-dead Torch River and went to the deepest depths of Star Lake. Here, he summoned Primordius' heavenly palace and entered it along with Xiao Moxian. "Lin Ming, what do you plan on doing?" Xiao Moxian was confused. Why would Lin Ming spend so much money to purchase information on divine runic masters from Heaven's Secret? Moreover, he had especially chosen evil and sinful divine runic masters. Could it be that he wanted to save the common people and eliminate future scourges? However, no matter what was said, they had indeed performed a good deed today. "You'll know in a bit. This is the first time I've tried this, so I don't know whether or not it will succeed." Lin Ming took a deep breath. He stretched out his right hand and then a cloud of darkness began to condense over his palm. In another several breaths of time, within this halo of black light, a dark grey cube slowly appeared, exuding a deep and mystical aura. This was the magic cube. After Lin Ming took out the magic cube, the dying and despairing Torch River suddenly twitched like he had been bitten by a snake. His body immediately stiffened. He stared at the magic cube with wide eyes that were filled with utter panic. What is this?" His voice shivered and fear discolored his face. Torch River was a spiritus. Within their bodies, the soul was the most important and integral part of them. Thus, he was extremely sensitive to this divine soul artifact, the magic cube. The saints refined their bodies, humans refined their energy, and the spiritus refined their souls. In a sense, The magic cube was the greatest and most precious treasure to the entire soul race, but at the same time, it was their supreme nemesis. This was because the magic cube was able to directly pull out a person's soul from their body and swallow it. Now that Torch River was in front of the magic cube, he was in that exact situation. He felt a terrifying force latch onto his body, faintly trying to pull out his soul. This strength left one drowning in helplessness, filled with fear. Torch River had originally been on the verge of collapse. His life was at its end, and with his cultivation being crippled by Lin Ming, there was nothing in his heart but anguish. But now that he faced the magic cube, another emotion overcame all else. This feeling was fear. In front of the magic cube, he felt as if he was being thrust into the deepest pit of hell, forever unable to reincarnate. Torch River struggled to retreat, leaving a trail of blood on the ground. For a spiritus to see the magic cube was like a mouse seeing a cat, a frog seeing a snake. This was an instinctual, inborn suppression. However, he had been locked onto by a strength and was left unable to struggle at all. He could only watch helplessly as the magic cube came closer and closer. This feeling was truly blood-curdling. What are you trying to do? I am going to refine your soul. Lin Ming smiled. But at this moment, his smile was extremely fierce. This is a divine tool that can refine souls. Its name is the Divine Crystal Magic Cube. You might have heard of it before or you might not have, but none of that matters, because you will soon feel its strength. What do you want to know? I will tell you anything you want. Do not swallow my soul. Torch River was paler than white, his voice trembling the entire time. I'm sorry. The things I want to know are not things you can tell me. Lin Ming fiendishly grinned. Then, he poured his origin energy into the magic cube. The magic cube began to spin, sucking up all of the nearby divine soul energy. With the magic cube as the center, a black vortex appeared, seeming as if it could swallow the world. Ah! Torch River issued a heart-piercing scream. His body was twisted apart in this vortex and crushed to pieces. A deep blue divine soul was forcefully torn out from his ruined body before being sucked into the magic cube. No. Torch River's last cry seemed to stretch to infinity within this vortex, completed distorted. After that came pain, a pain that couldn't be described. A terrifying energy struck his soul form, and forcefully tore away his spirit mark. The souls of the spiriters were strong to begin with and their spirit marks were extremely deep. For their spirit mark to be torn out, the pain was excruciating beyond compare. Torch River felt as if time had slowed down to a crawl. Each breath of time seemed to last as long as a year. This endless and inexhaustible pain made him want to die, but he simply didn't possess the ability to kill himself. Torch River cried out again and again. Lin Ming was able to extinguish his soul from the start, but he didn't do so. Instead, he slowly grinded away Torch River's spirit mark. Towards this scumbag divine runic master who had caused so much suffering, only this sort of fate could slightly make up for all his sins. A person's soul was composed of pure memories and their spirit mark. This was a person's characteristic of life. If they lost either half, then the person would lose all sense of self. A person's spirit mark was like endless tiny filaments that thoroughly penetrated into every nook and cranny of a person's soul. Wanting to completely erase them without damaging the memories was impossible. But the magic cube could actually do this. It had the ability to pull out these tiny, imperceptible threads. And as this ability was reflected on Torch River's body, it was more painful than being slowly flayed alive. Lin Ming slowly and carefully removed Torch River's spirit mark from his memories. This was also because Lin Ming had never used the magic cube in this manner before. It was his first time using the magic cube to produce memory fragments on his own initiative. In order to maintain the full body of Torch River's memories, Lin Ming used a full day and night to complete this laborious work. And as he was nearing the end, Torch River's soul had already dimmed down to nothing but an ember. His consciousness had been slowly tortured and destroyed by Lin Ming. Chapter 1554, Heavenly Extreme Bliss. Chapter 1554, Heavenly Extreme Bliss. This day and night of pain was simply indescribable. Even Xiao Moxian, who swore she would cut Torch River to pieces, still felt her heart skip a beat as she saw his fate. The echoes of pain that transmitted from Torch River's soul were far too brutal and agonizing. It was hard to imagine just what he had experienced in this day. Finished. Lin Ming let out a long sigh of relief. He looked towards the complete ownerless memory fragment that floated within the magic cube, and a happy expression crossed his lips. He had spent a great sum of money at Heaven's Secret to purchase information, and then had cut down Torch River with all of his strength. Everything he did was for this ownerless and complete memory fragment, the memories of a divine runic master. Of the 3 divine tools, the divine magic cube, Grand Mist Spirit Bead, and that secretive and mysterious purple card, each one was the highest level of treasures. For the purple card, Lin Ming had no idea what its function was. But as for the magic cube and Grand Mist Spirit Bead, he had more or less dug out their secrets. Of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead and the magic cube, one was focused on the body and the other on the soul. The Grand Mist Spirit Bead could forcefully wrest away and swallow the blood vitality of all life. Moreover, it possessed the ability to condense all of this blood vitality into Grand Mist Spirit Bead essence. The effects of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead essence even surpassed a transcendent divine pill that was refined by an Empyrean. When Lin Ming broke through the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, if he didn't have the help of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead essence, then even if he had the strength from the Essence Spirit Embryo Stone and Xiao Moxian's primordial yin blood, it still wouldn't have been enough for him to achieve his breakthrough. The reason that the good fortune Saint Sun had the strength to suppress an ordinary world king with his peak divine lord realm cultivation was all because of the heaven-defying support of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead. In a sense, the Grand Mist Spirit Bead suited the saint race far more than any other race. If a human were to obtain the Grand Mist Spirit Bead, then the use of it would be extremely minor for them. This was because the road of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace had been blocked. In the past, when Empyrean Primordius obtained the Grand Mist Spirit Bead, his essence-gathering system cultivation had already reached the World King boundary. But he hadn't started body transformation yet at all. He had started everything from zero. Not only was this road of martial arts one that defied the heavens, but Empyrean Primordius had also missed the best opportunity for him to cultivate body transformation. The difficulty of the road he took afterwards could be imagined. Even so, Empyrean Primordius had finally relied on the heaven-defying effects of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead and his own prodigious talent to break into the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. But Empyrean Primordius hadn't opened too many Dao Palaces. At that time, his essence-gathering system cultivation was the extreme Empyrean realm, but his 9 stars of the Dao Palace had only opened 4 or 5 palaces. His body transformation cultivation was far inferior to his essence-gathering cultivation, and his body transformation technique only had a limited ability to enhance his combat strength. In comparison, Lin Ming had a divine lord realm cultivation and had opened a single star of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace. Currently, his body transformation cultivation was higher than his essence-gathering system cultivation. It was similar to giving a child a well-crafted and accurate crossbow, making that child's lethal killing ability to rise to an all-new level. Even a strong and robust man could still be severely wounded or shot dead by an accurate arrow. Therefore, Lin Ming was able to cross 2 large boundaries in the essence-gathering system and contend with an ordinary world king. As for the magic cube, its abilities seemed to surpass even those of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead. It was able to ignore the protection of the flesh and directly exterminate an enemy's soul. But the true strength of the magic cube wasn't its ability to directly extinguish a person's soul and increase Lin Ming's combat strength. Rather, the true strength of the magic cube lay in its ability to cleanse a person's soul of its spirit mark, turning it into pure memories that could be freely absorbed without needing to worry that one would fall into madness. This heaven-defying effect was perfectly suited for plundering the cultivation methods of others. The cultivation methods of the martial world couldn't be passed on orally but had to be passed on through cultivation method jade slips. This was because cultivation method jade slips were far too complex and couldn't be fully explained in words alone. However, with the magic cube, Lin Ming was able to completely accept and inherit any martial artist's cultivation methods. This even included their attainments and experiences in those cultivation method. Thus, Lin Ming could cultivate at an astronomical speed. When combined with his superior perception, the speed of his progress could only be described as rising 10,000 miles in a single day. Besides cultivation methods, almost everything else was applicable. This included divine runic arts, alchemy, array formations, refining technique, many other skills. Not only could he inherit all of their knowledge, but he could inherit all of their experience. And what Lin Ming needed to do was to constantly practice, thoroughly mastering this knowledge and reviewing these experiences, fusing those memories into his body until they became instinctual. This method of studying and speed of learning was simply mind-boggling, truly heaven-defying. The divine runic arts that took others dozens of years to learn would only take Lin Ming several months of practice. It could be said that when Lin Ming had reached the Divine Lord boundary and gained the ability to activate the magic cube, he had silently undergone a dreadful transformation, one that no one knew about. As Lin Ming grew stronger, he would be able to kill stronger masters and swallow their memories. And the more memories Lin Ming swallowed, the faster his cultivation would rise and the stronger he would become. As long as he had enough time, Lin Ming's strength would grow like a snowball rolling down a snowy mountain, rapidly growing. He would eventually become a perfectly versatile genius, skilled in all aspects. Thus, although the Grand Mist Spirit Bead was also a priceless treasure to Lin Ming, during his youth, the use of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead was far inferior to the help of the magic cube. From what he knew, the Grand Mist Spirit Bead focused on the mortal body and was able to produce endless medicines that surpassed the rank of transcendent divine pills. But, transcendent divine pills were still something that Lin Ming could find if he went searching for lucky chances, wandering through danger zones, or he might even be able to purchase them. However, soul fragments from the magic cube were different. This would save a massive amount of cultivation time for Lin Ming, and what Lin Ming needed the most right now was time. Lin Ming closed his eyes in meditation, restoring his divine soul to its peak state. Then, he began to swallow Torchriver's ownerless soul. These were the complete memories of an ordinary world king. The amount of information stored within it reached unimaginable levels. When Lin Ming was in the lower realms, he had only absorbed small soul fragments. Moreover, the past masters of these soul fragments didn't surpass holy lords before they had died. Even so, to the Lin Ming of that time, these soul fragments placed a tremendous burden on his divine soul. Swallowing these ownerless memories was like cutting open his head and stuffing in a massive amount of information. Because there was too much information and it was far too complex and diverse, Lin Ming had felt as if his head would explode. This wasn't something that the average person was able to withstand. Fortunately, during Lin Ming's 9 years in Tragic Death Valley, he had cultivated the divine Mist Heart mantra and his soul force was no longer comparable to how it was in the past. Although abruptly absorbing the memories of an ordinary world king was extremely difficult, it wasn't to the degree where it would instantly shatter his spiritual sea. It had to be known that Torch River had lived for nearly 1,000,000 years. Moreover, a world king had an extremely sharp memory and they were able to memorize things very clearly and in much detail. As these memories accumulated over time, the total quantity of them was simply unimaginable. When Lin Ming let open his spiritual sea, these memories rushed into him like endless waves from a dam that broke apart. Even though Lin Ming was already prepared, he was nearly washed away in this deluge of memories and his divine soul almost lost. He hurriedly guarded his mind, summoning a battle spirit sword and sending it howling out. Catcher! Torchriver's ownerless soul was chopped to pieces by Lin Ming's battle spirit. Lin Ming swept through these soul fragments at a frightening speed, immediately discarding large numbers of useless soul fragments. These included Torchriver's life experiences, his dealings with others, his friends, foes, and so forth. There were also a great number of memories from when Torchriver lured, raped, and intimidated young girls. All of these were discarded by Lin Ming. However, upon seeing these memories, Lin Ming thought more and more that this Torchriver died a deserving death. He had simply ruined far too many young girls. After being raped by him, many of these young girls had been savagely tortured to death. He had even gone into the world of mortals, disguising himself as a bandit rapist and violating young girls from all over. The youngest of these was even 12 to 13 years old. For such a disgustingly immoral despoiler to reach this level, it was truly a rare sight. Different people had different pursuits in life. What Lin Ming pursued was the peak of martial arts and to stand on par with the heavens and earth. But this Torch River pursued immortality so that he could enjoy new young girls forever, tasting them all whether it was now, 1,000 years from now, or 1,000,000 years from now. Torch River's ownerless memories were quickly chopped into hundreds upon hundreds of pieces. Like this, 99% of the memories were thrown away by Lin Ming. The only remaining memories were those related to cultivation method inheritances, divine runic arts, and alchemy. But upon reviewing Torch River's cultivation methods, Lin Ming was stunned. Torch River had over 100 different cultivation methods and even a complete transcendent divine might. With the status of an ordinary world king, it was very difficult to ever hope of learning a complete transcendent divine might. But, as a divine runic master, Torch River was wealthier than some great world kings. By spending a massive amount of wealth, he was able to obtain this transcendent divine might. And, what left Lin Ming speechless was that this transcendent divine might was called Heavenly Extreme Bliss. It was a dual cultivation method. Out of Torch River's 100-some cultivation methods, over 70 of them were related to dual cultivation. He had really taken the road of obscenity to the limit. Lin Ming threw away most of these cultivation methods. He simply couldn't be bothered with looking at these low-level ones. But, it was too wasteful if this complete transcendent divine might was lost like this. Thinking about this, he kept the heavenly extreme bliss. At this time, Lin Ming seemed to realize something. He momentarily stopped absorbing Torch River's soul fragments. Then, Lin Ming took the spatial ring from Torch River and crushed it. A massive amount of bottles, jars, pillboxes, and all sorts of things came flying out. Among the mess was a pink jade slip that Lin Ming grabbed. This pink jade slip was the complete cultivation method jade slip for heavenly extremely bliss. Torch River had used several hundred thousands of years of time accumulate a massive amount of wealth through his career as a divine runic master. Then, in addition to a mind-boggling lucky chance that he obtained in a mystic realm, he had traded all of that for this complete transcendent divine might jade slip. This caused Lin Ming to sigh. In terms of obscenity, Torch River had done everything in his power to reach the peak. Millimeter? What is that? Xiao Moxian watched as Lin Ming temporarily withdrew from absorbing memories and then specifically took out the jade slip. She could immediately feel that this jade slip wasn't ordinary. This is a complete transcendent divine might. Lin Ming dryly coughed and awkwardly gesticulated. A complete transcendent divine might jade slip? Xiao Moxian was startled. An ordinary world king had this sort of thing. Not even Tian Mingzi had one. Tian Mingzi only had 2 incomplete transcendent divine mights. Otherwise, he wouldn't have entered Demon Dawn Heavenly Palace to study the heaven-absorbing demon art. That's right. Divine runic masters are ridiculously rich. This jade slip was obtained by another world king in a mystic realm, but after that world king tried practicing this cultivation method to 60 to 70%, he realized that it didn't fit him too well. The world king took it out to sell, and in order to obtain this jade slip, Torch River paid a heart-bleeding price, trading half of his lifetime savings for it. I see. Can I see what sort of jade slip that is? Xiao Moxian laughed and took the jade slip from Lin Ming's hands. Chapter 1555, Learning Skills. Chapter 1555, Learning Skills. Xiao Moxian happily began to search through the contents within the jade slip, but after she saw what was inside she was left completely stunned. The descriptions of the cultivation method were extremely graphic and exceedingly pornographic. This was actually a dual cultivation method. Xiao Moxian blushed. She sputtered, saying, "Blair, just what sort of Empyrean was this? I can't believe that the summary of their lifetime studies is this sort of thing." Lin Ming awkwardly coughed. This is a cultivation method formed by husband and wife Empyreans who took the sexual road. The 2 of them were peerless geniuses of their time and both became Empyreans together. Lin Ming had scanned through Torch River's memories and knew what the origin of this cultivation method was. For a husband and wife to cultivate to the Empyrean realm together was an extremely rare sight. Empyreans were already rare in the martial world. An Empyrean Holy Land might not even be able to train an Empyrean successor in tens of millions of years, and for a couple to reach the Empyrean boundary together was far rarer than that. For instance, Empyrean Demon Dawn and the Monster Emperor only had world kings as wives. Cultivate into Empyreans together? Lin Ming, we must become true divinities together, Xiao Moxian suddenly said, stating her goal. She wanted to become a true divinity, and in her opinion it wasn't difficult at all for Lin Ming to accomplish this. For him, the realm of true divinity might even be underestimating him. Xiao Moxian was filled with anticipation as she thought of cultivating into true divinities with Lin Ming. Perhaps, they would leave behind an eternal story of love and adventure, one that would be spoken about by the future generations, just like Empyrean Divine Seal. All right. Lin Ming chuckled. In truth, his goal surpassed that of a true divinity. He wanted to surpass a true divinity and reach the peak of all martial arts. Xiao Moxian grinned and put away the heavenly extreme bliss jade slip. This jade slip was only good as reference material for Xiao Moxian. She wasn't satisfied with taking the path of others. When she had the ability to do so, she would carve out her own cultivation path. Only like this would she be able to surpass those who came before her. At this time, Lin Ming had re-entered the soul space and continued to absorb Torchriver's memory fragments. Now he was about to absorb the most essential part, memories of the divine runic arts and alchemy. This was the main reason that Lin Ming had killed Torchriver. Torchriver had already reached the last years of his life and had fallen into a demented state, ready to die at any moment. He had lost all value, and in this situation, there was no one that would bother to provoke someone who had once been a world king and was even now a half-step world king. As for him ruining the lives of countless young women, there were even fewer people that cared about this. When a martial artist began slaughtering, sometimes they would exterminate entire cities. They could destroy what they wanted and no one would chase after this. This was a brutal world where strength reigned supreme. Besides the heavenly Tao, there were no laws that stood above martial arts. For a time, images of runes and array formations rushed into Lin Ming's mind. Torchriver had been a divine runic master and alchemist for several hundred thousands of years. Although he was a sinful person, his accomplishments in divine runic arts and alchemy were truly worthy of respect. After all, he had once been an elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild, and was a true 6th grade Divine Runic Master. It had to be known that in the Divine Runic Masters Guild, an 8th grade Divine Runic Master was a legend and 9th grade Divine Runic Masters were ancient myths that only existed billions of years ago. It could be said that a 7th grade Divine Runic Master was the highest level there was, and if one had such ability, they could even become guild president of the Divine Runic Masters Guild. If one had to forcefully equate ranks of Divine Runic Masters with the cultivation ranks of a martial artist, then a 7th grade Divine Runic Master would be equal to an Empyrean. And in fact, there were many Divine Runic Masters that had the strength of an Empyrean. A 6th grade Divine Runic Master was equal to a World King. Outstanding 6th grade Divine Runic Masters were similar to Great World Kings. Torchriver was a 6th grade Divine Runic Master, and 100,000 years ago, his cultivation had been that of an ordinary World King. A 5th grade Divine Runic Master was equal to a Holy Lord. A 4th grade Divine Runic Master was equal to a Divine Lord. A 3rd grade Divine Runic Master was equal to Divine Transformation. Even so, the truth was that a 3rd or 4th grade Divine Runic Master was far more precious than a comparable martial artist of that boundary. Divine Transformation realm powerhouses could be found everywhere, but 3rd grade Divine Runic Masters had a considerable amount of status. If a 3rd grade Divine Runic Master were a bit younger than average, proving that they had a bright future ahead of them, there would be many great influences that would try to win them over. Yu Liuxing's senior apprentice brother was in this type of situation. He had studied the Divine Runic Arts for only several dozen years, and now he had become a 3rd grade Divine Runic Master. Although he was only at the 3rd grade, there were many leaders of large influences that were polite to him, because there was a chance that he could become an elder of the Divine Runic Masters Guild in the future. That was a truly incredible person. As Lin Ming scanned more and more memories, a huge amount of information piled up in his mind. He felt as if a massive steel weight was wildly smashing into his spiritual sea. Lin Ming grit his teeth, resisting this mind-tearing pain as he slowly reorganized Torchriver's memories. These memories contained a massive amount of experiences concerning alchemy and divine runic arts that Torchriver had accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years. Although Torchriver was a lustful villain, there was no doubting his specialized skills. One could even say that he was considerably talented in divine runic arts and alchemy, otherwise it was impossible for him to have become a 6th-grade divine runic master, 8th-grade alchemist. Torchriver was also well aware that the divine runic arts were the foundation for his pursuit of comfort, women, and immortality. Torchriver had an amazingly sharp memory. He was able to clearly remember every young girl that he had abused in the last several hundred thousands of years. But, beyond that, he was also able to clearly remember the process, details, and experiences of all the alchemy and divine runic arts he had done. Countless experiments, whether they had been failures or successes, had consumed a massive amount of precious materials or hard work. This was the summary of all his experiences and the experiences of his predecessors. It was all invaluable data. It had to be known that although a divine runic master made a great deal of money, they also burnt through money just as fast. The materials they used often cost several 100 million origin energy runes. If they failed, all of that would vanish into nothing, completely wasted. To raise a single divine runic master would require a large influence to invest the entirety of their financial resources. For a single person to become a divine runic master alone, that was simply far too difficult. Every divine runic master had their own unique take on the divine runic arts, and every now and then they would suddenly have strange and bizarre ideas. If they wanted to put these ideas into practice, they had to undergo countless revisions and deliberations, because every new idea meant new investments of materials. And of these ideas, over 99% would fail. But, even failure meant that they would gain more experiences and knowledge from these defeats. And once they succeeded, even if they only succeeded a little bit, this would mean an astonishing new amount of wealth. This success would become some divine runic master's ultimate secret skill, something they would never pass on to anyone else. This was inevitable. After all, researching new ideas simply cost far too many resources. In addition, the Divine Runic Masters Guild was not a single, unified obelisk. Within the guild, many divine runic masters would compete against each other for resources. They would invest their resources into new studies, and whatever new information they gained, they wouldn't pass it on to anyone, not even their own apprentices. In this case, the hundreds of thousands of years of memories that Lin Ming absorbed, and all of the experiences and knowledge that went with them, was simply unable to be measured with mere will. In particular, unlike other divine runic arts apprentices, Lin Ming learnt all of this in a short period of time. Other apprentices would take dozens or hundreds of years, flattering and helping their master and having to also show a great deal of skill before they were taught anything worthwhile. Even then, only when their master retired and had a foot in the coffin would they decide to pass on the essence of their life studies. But at this time, their apprentice wouldn't be young either. And those that had the qualifications to flatter their masters and learn true abilities were all direct disciples of divine runic masters, like Yu Liuxing's senior apprentice brother, Luo Yubai. As for brother and sister duo Yu Liuxing and Yu Qifeng, they wouldn't even see their master more than 5 times in a month, so what guidance could they possibly seek? Every divine runic master would have more or less a dozen or even dozens of unique skills. And now, all of Torchriver's unique skills had been completely learned by Lin Ming. What Lin Ming had to do was thoroughly digest all of these experiences and attainments, practicing them until they became natural movements to him. No matter how much knowledge he had, it was useless if his hands and feet couldn't follow his mind. Xiao Moxian activated Primordius Heavenly Palace's time enchantment, increasing the flow of time to a 20-to-1 ratio. Within this time enchantment, Lin Ming constantly recalled Torchriver's memories. After a month passed, Lin Ming had fully carved the hundreds of thousands of years of Torchriver's memories into his spiritual sea, making them completely his. After finishing all of this, Lin Ming let out a long breath of relief. He hadn't rested for a single moment in this entire month, and his temples were pained, he had deep headaches, and his entire body was soaked with sweat. Lin Ming then rested in meditation for a full 10 hours, slowly restoring himself. As he opened his eyes, his vision gleamed with a bright light, shining with intelligence. He knew that the step he took had been the right one. By absorbing the memories of a divine runic master, the advantages he obtained could be imagined. This had saved Lin Ming dozens and hundreds of years of backbreaking work. All of this was thanks to the heaven-defying abilities of the magic cube. Otherwise, it would have been unimaginably difficult for Lin Ming to study divine runic arts and alchemy, but just Torchriver's divine runic arts were not enough. Lin Ming wasn't satisfied with this alone. He studied the divine runic arts and alchemy in order to pave the road for his 9 stars of the Tao Palace. After all, unlike Empyrean Primordius, Lin Ming didn't possess the endless essence of the Grand Mist Spirit Bead. Lin Ming could only refine pills through alchemy, and the pills required for the 9 stars of the Tao Palace, in particular the last several stars, would be far too difficult for a mere 6th-grade divine runic master. He would need to be at least a 7th-grade divine runic master. Torchriver had only been a 6th-grade divine runic master. In the future, he would only serve as reference to Lin Ming. Since these memories would all be reference materials, Lin Ming didn't mind having too many of them. Come, let's go to where Heaven's Secret said the 2nd divine runic master is. As Lin Ming spoke, a thick killing intent sparked in his eyes. The 2nd divine runic master was even easier for him to kill. He couldn't help but admire the work of Heaven's Secret. If it wasn't for their information, then he would never have been able to find so many skilled divine runic masters that had also lost the protection of any great influences. After receiving Primordius' heavenly palace, Lin Ming brought along the many young girls that had been imprisoned by Torchriver and flew straight to the southeast. His destination was only 1,000,000 miles away. It wouldn't be long before he arrived. Chapter 1556, Eternal Glory Cult Leader. Chapter 1556, Eternal Glory Cult Leader. Over 1,000,000 miles southeast of Divine Rune City, there was a grand and vibrant mountain range called the Dragon Union Mountain. And within Dragon Union Mountain was a sect that had been founded a mere 100,000 years ago, called the Eternal Glory Cult. The Eternal Glory Cult had only had 2 leaders so far, both of them dragons amongst people. However, what was unfortunate was that the first leader had perished in a mystic realm, a story of a man who had died at the prime of his life. At present, the 2nd Eternal Glory Cult leader had only commanded the Eternal Glory Cult for a mere 1,000 years. But in this 1,000 years of time, the Eternal Glory Cult had rapidly expanded. The new leader was young and filled with promise, with a halo of future wonders to him. Many influences from all over wanted to be on good terms with the Eternal Glory Cult. Now the Eternal Glory Cult was a peak holy land. Within 10,000 years, they had hopes of growing into an ordinary world king holy land. Eternal glory shines supreme, existing as the heavens. In the great square that lay before the doors of the Church of the Eternal Glory Cult, over 10,000 people were lying prostrate in worship. These were all disciples of the Eternal Glory Cult, and in the revered seat above the church, a young man in 5-colored royal robes was regally sitting, enjoying the worship of these 10,000+ people. The Eternal Glory Cult was not just a sect, but also a religion. The greatest difference between a sect and a religion was that a sect used inheritances as the core of their foundation, while a religion used certain teachings and beliefs as the core of their foundation instead. Now, the young man sitting in the revered seat was the Eternal Glory Cult leader. He was the ultimate faith of countless disciples, a being equivalent to God in their eyes. These disciples constantly went out to preach and find new followers on missionary expeditions. These believers were all loyal to this young man, and the fanatical ones were willing to die for him. This young cult leader possessed not just outstanding talent, but he was also a divine runic master. He had refused the approaches of countless large influences trying to win him over and prop up his sect. This was because he had great ambitions and was unwilling to bow down before anyone. He wanted to be the ultimate master of his fate, ruling over this world of his. But at this time, this young man felt his heart turn cold. Suddenly, without warning, a killing intent beyond his understanding locked onto him. As his complexion changed, he immediately leapt upward. Bang! The seat that the young cult leader had been sitting on was destroyed by a horrifying spear light. This caused the expressions of everyone in the square to rapidly change. A young man and woman appeared in the air, seeming as if they had come from nowhere. They were Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. "You are the 6th grade divine runic master, Kaifeng?" Lin Ming looked over this eternal glory cult leader. From appearances, this cult leader didn't seem too old, but the truth was far different. "Who are you?" The man's complexion turned cold. This unknown other party was exuding thick killing intent. He had clearly come here with no good intentions. Kaifeng, peak Holy Lord cultivation, outstanding martial talent, his strength shows scorn for all other martial artists of his realm. In the divine runic arts, his talent is similarly peerless. With his peak Holy Lord cultivation, he managed to become a 6th grade divine runic master. He can be called a truly rare talent. However, this person's character is cruel and sinister. He has great ambitions and is unwilling to yield to any influence or any person. He wishes to found his own sect and rule the world. He loves the worship and admiration of people and wants to become the god of countless others. In a mystic realm danger zone, in order to obtain an ancient inheritance, Kaifeng killed his own master, the first leader of the Eternal Glory cult. Afterwards, he took his master's place and became the second leader of the Eternal Glory cult and began to secretly practice the ancient inheritance he obtained in that mystic realm. And in order to practice this ancient inheritance, one needed the power of belief. Thus, Kaifeng turned and developed the Eternal Glory cult into his own personal religion, drawing in innumerable believers so that he could use their prayers and worship to cultivate his own martial art. But, what these followers of his don't know is that once their power of belief is sucked out, their life origin energy will also be lost, causing their own cultivations to be hindered. Lin Ming loudly spoke, pouring true essence into his voice. These were all words passed to him by Heaven's secret. Upon hearing these words, Chifeng's face turned darker than water. "What utter nonsense! If you don't want others to know about your deeds, then you should have never done them. During the adventure into that mystic realm, it wasn't just you and your master who went, there were many other witnesses. Unfortunately, your master was blind and accepted a disciple like you. Not just that, but in order to consolidate your status as the cult leader, you even married his daughter. What a pity! His daughter never knew that her father died beneath the hands of her husband." After Lin Ming learned the divine mist heart mantra, he developed even sharper perceptions of soul force. As he spoke, he could clearly feel fluctuations in Chifeng's divine soul. With this, Lin Ming was able to confirm that the information Heaven's secret gave to him was more or less correct. To sell this information for several hundred millions of origin energy runes, it naturally had a certain guarantee of authenticity. "Kaifeng, your talent is outstanding. Whether it is divine runic arts or alchemy, you have wonderful attainments, and even your martial arts cultivation is the same. But too bad for you, you have made a grave mistake. You were far too arrogant, and before you were able to spread your wings, you became far too hasty and tried to train in your devil arts and found your own religion. Because you were unwilling to serve under others, you rejected the invitation of all the other great influences and thus you have lost their protection. Now, this day shall be the day of your death." Lin Ming drew out the phoenix blood spear and pointed it straight towards Chifeng's head. And at this time, the many followers of the Eternal Glory cult had become enraged. They soared up in droves, surrounding Lin Ming. "Just who are you? Since you dare to offend our god, your punishment will be your life. You actually dared to slander our cult leader and even the past cult leader. You will burn in the fires of hell for 1,000 years before your bones turn to ash." The followers of the Eternal Glory cult all drew out their weapons and rushed towards Lin Ming. Their belief and worship of the Eternal Glory cult was deeply ingrained into their hearts and minds. For Lin Ming to say such heretical words in front of them, this naturally touched their reverse scale. "What a bunch of idiots. You deserve to have all your strength sucked dry." Xiao Moxian coldly snorted at the actions of these foolish believers. And at this time, Kaifeng laughed. The stupid ones are you. With your mere divine lord realm cultivation, you actually came here to try and trick my people. As my followers have said, you will burn in the fires of hell for 1,000 years as your bones turn to ash. As Kaifeng spoke, Xiao Moxian suddenly attacked. Her body disappeared in a series of after-images as she launched towards Kaifeng at inconceivable speed. After her cultivation stepped into the Divine Lord realm and she completed her first Phoenix Nirvana, Xiao Moxian's strength had become absolutely terrifying. Attack together. As the many followers saw Xiao Moxian move, all of them prepared to attack her. But suddenly, an invisible force field came shrouding down over them. A boundless and primal aura spread out in all directions, causing them to freeze where they were, unable to move a single step forwards. This was Lin Ming's Grand Mist space. After pouring Grand Mist energy into the Grand Mist space, these followers of the Eternal Glory cult that were only at the Divine Lord and early Holy Lord realms found it impossible to move even the slightest bit. They were like insects caught in a spider's web. The more they struggled, the tighter the force field would bind them. And this force field affected not just the followers but also Kaifeng. Chifeng's complexion changed. He revolved his energy to the limit, wanting to break through the shackles of this force field. But by now, Xiao Moxian had already rushed in front of him. Her body shimmered with a dazzling black light. The back of her clothes tore open, revealing a pair of phoenix wings that unfurled into the skies. At the same time, Xiao Moxian also burnt her phoenix blood essence. After experiencing her phoenix nirvana, she had gained the most important ability of her bloodline. She could burn her blood essence without harming her life source. Once Lin Ming opened the gate of life, he had gained the ability to regenerate his blood essence. But there were many limits to this ability. Once he burned 50% of his blood essence, he would cause permanent damage and losses to his blood vitality. And, after burning his blood essence, he required several days to restore himself. Thus, Lin Ming didn't freely burn it. However, Xiao Moxian wasn't bound by these worries. After experiencing her first nirvana, she could burn up to 70% of her blood essence without any negative side effects. Moreover, as she went through more and more nirvanas in the future, this 70% limit would slowly disappear until she finally reached the boundary where she could infinitely burn her blood essence. Not just that, but after burning her blood essence, Xiao Moxian restored herself at a pace that far outstripped Lin Ming. In a way, Xiao Moxian burning her blood essence was similar to Lin Ming opening the heretical god force. She could do it whenever she wished. As she pulled out her whip, she slashed out at Chifeng's face. Seeing with his own eyes as Xiao Moxian shot towards him with a dreadful momentum, Chifeng's complexion changed. He never imagined that Lin Ming would have such a strange force field, causing him to weaken by 50%. In this life or death moment, 9 divine runic symbols appeared in front of Kaifeng. These 9 divine runic symbols began to burn together before gathering into an array diagram that blocked Xiao Moxian's whip. Peng! With an explosive shattering sound, the array diagram broke apart. Kaifeng took this change to roar out loud and fly away. You are indeed worthy of being a 6th grade divine runic master with such a life-saving card. Someone with a peak Holy Lord cultivation can actually resist Xiana's all-out strike even while being covered by the Grand Mist space. This was the 2nd divine runic master that Lin Ming had faced. Both of these divine runic masters could be called loners. The divine runic symbols they had were mostly drawn up by themselves, but they still held such power behind them. Kaifeng took out another 2 divine runic symbols. He slapped them onto his body, causing them to transform into a bright blue set of ice armor. At the same time, his fingers flashed and with a loud shout a fire dragon was shot out by him, impacting towards Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. This fire dragon was Chifeng's vital true flame. Many alchemists would subdue a fire elemental for their own use, and now that Kaifeng faced such powerful enemies, he had summoned the fire elemental from within his body. This was also one of his final trump cards. Xiao Moxian chuckled. Facing this fire dragon, she didn't avoid or dodge, but fired straight towards it. Ca. Her black wings danced forth like black sabers, cutting that fire dragon into several pieces. With a loud detonation, the fire dragon blew apart into smoke and ash. Kaifeng was left panic-stricken as he saw this. At the same time, despair began to rise in his heart. Just how did this young girl possess such strength? His all-out attack had actually been defeated by her as if she had been blowing out a candle. Waters fill the Dragon King's temple and fires light up the phoenix's nest. If you want to play with fire in front of me, then you might as well set yourself on fire instead. If one ignored the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, Xiao Moxian wasn't much weaker than Lin Ming. She wasn't someone that a peak Holy Lord was able to handle. This was true even for an outstanding existence amongst peak Holy Lords. Moreover, for this opponent to use flames to attack her, it was like he wanted to die. Chapter 1557, Thorough Mastery. Chapter 1557, Thorough Mastery. Let me show you what true fire is. Xiao Moxian spread out her hands and ghostly black flames leapt between them, beating like a heart and peacefully burning. Although these flames didn't seem too hot, the surrounding void began to distort because of these flames, showing just how hot they were. Chifeng's complexion changed as he saw this. You've already approached the 7th level concept, to bring virtual fire into reality. These flames contained virtual flames and true flames. Once these flames reached the limit in their fusion, the concept of fire would enter into the 7th level. Currently, Xiao Moxian had yet to step into the true 7th level concept, but even so, this was an extremely exaggerated accomplishment. There were many fire attribute cultivation method world kings that couldn't compare with Xiao Moxian. Catcher. Chifeng's icy armor was blown away by Xiao Moxian's black flames, with half of his body being charred black in the process. However, he still struggled to the end. He reached out, wanting to pull another divine runic symbol from his spatial ring and bet his life, but at this time, the grand mist space came shrouding down over him, locking down his movements once more. Meanwhile, Xiao Moxian's whip vanished into dozens of after-images that formed a cone as they came slashing down. Kaifeng was frightened out of his mind. He desperately tried to summon true essence to break free from Lin Ming's force field shackles, but beneath the phantoms of these dozens of whip attacks, his protective true essence instantly collapsed as dozens of bloody holes were pierced through here. And at this time, only then was Kaifeng able to pull out a second set of divine runic symbols from his spatial ring. But then, his face paled and he fell downwards with a scream. Beneath the joint attacks of Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian, the originally far weaker Kaifeng simply didn't have the ability to resist. The ending to this battle had already been doomed to be one-sided from the start. In terms of strength, Kaifeng was still slightly worse than the completely exhausted Torch River. "Take him away," Lin Ming indifferently said. Xiao Moxian flicked her hand and her whip tightly wrapped around Kaifeng. "What do you want to do with all these followers?" Xiao Moxian asked as an afterthought. Lin Ming replied, "Don't bother with them. If they can't tell right from wrong, then there will be no future for them in the Azura Road. They will all die sooner or later." As Lin Ming spoke, his body turned into a beam of light that hurtled into the skies, with Xiao Moxian following right behind. This was the 2nd Divine Runic Master they had captured, the 6th grade Divine Runic Master, 7th grade Alchemist Kaifeng. Although this person was weaker than the cruel and sinful sex fiend Torch River, in terms of sinisterness, he actually far surpassed him. He had secretly killed his own master in a mystic realm for mere treasures. This sort of heartless decision was almost the same as Qian Mingzi killing the old verdant Featherworld king. This was something Lin Ming hated the most. And even worse was that after his master had died, Kaifeng had married his master's daughter in order to consolidate authority around him. As her heart had been breaking over the death of her father, Kaifeng had appeared and comforted her, even propping up the sect by himself. In this sort of situation, it was simple for Kaifeng to capture the heart of his master's daughter. Afterwards, Kaifeng had made up all sorts of lies to trick the people and establish his own religion, absorbing the power of faith from his followers to cultivate his devil arts. Although these were heinous actions, they weren't comparable to what he had done before. In short, this person was deserving of death. And most important was that killing Kaifeng wasn't difficult at all. This sort of genius actually wanted to establish his own sect and had refused all outside help. On this alone, Lin Ming greatly admired Heaven's Secret. For them to have such accurate information was truly remarkable. Lin Ming even suspected that perhaps the cultivation method manual that they used to gather information was on the level of a transcendent divine might. Lin Ming quickly exterminated Chifeng's soul and erased his spirit mark. Then, he swallowed down Chifeng's soul. Kaifeng wasn't too old. In terms of total amount of memories, he had far less than Torch River, so it was easier for Lin Ming to absorb them. In Primordius Heavenly Palace's time enchantment, Lin Ming used only a single month to absorb all of these memories. The reason that Kaifeng was able to become a 6th grade divine runic master at the peak Holy Lord realm was all due to his own outstanding talent. However, in terms of the experiences he had accumulated, he was inferior to Torch River. Even so, Kaifeng had many unique ideas and a very wide range of thoughts that provided a great deal of inspirations to Lin Ming. After Lin Ming killed Kaifeng, he had killed 2 of the 3 divine runic masters that Heaven's Secret had told him about. And, the last one was the simplest one. This person was only a 5th grade divine runic master with an early Holy Lord cultivation. Killing him was extremely easy. This person had originally been given a death sentence by a divine kingdom from the outer Orzra Road. To avoid being hunted down, he had fled into the inner Azura Road. He was a solitary person with a strange and eccentric personality. He was cruel and diabolical, and didn't join any influence, not even the Divine Runic Masters Guild. Lin Ming flew another 500,000 miles to the southwest. He placed the young girls that had been tortured by Torch River in a mortal city, and then flew for several more hours before he found the 3rd Divine Runic Master. There wasn't any difficulty in finding this person, and Lin Ming also easily cut him down. Like this, the memories of 3 divine runic masters had been gathered up by Lin Ming. Then, Lin Ming used 3 months within Primordius Heavenly Palace's time enchantment to complete a thorough mastery of all 3 divine runic masters' memories. The divine runic arts and inscription technique were essentially the same thing, but the divine runic arts were far more complex. Moreover, the uses of the divine runic arts were far wider than those of inscription technique. The function of inscription technique was divided into 4 types. One was object inscription symbols that increased the power of weapons and armors, one was medicinal inscription symbols that increased the efficacy of pills, one was body inscription symbols that increased the might of the body, and the last were soul inscription symbols that increased the intensity of the soul. Of these 4 inscription symbols, Lin Ming had only seen the first 3, he had never studied the last kind. However, divine runic arts not only had all the effects of inscription technique but their usage far outstripped it. To turn stone into gold, water into oil, all of this was changing the structure of matter. Even changing the shape of a life form could be accomplished by the divine runic arts. A 7th grade divine runic master could even produce divine runic symbols that transformed a martial artist into a pig or dog. In the Divine Runic Masters Guild, there was a type of punishment where one was transformed into a pig or dog for 1,000 years. The martial artist being punished would even retain their original intelligence the entire time. To have the intelligence of a sentient being while having the body of a pig or dog, this was a truly sickening experience. In addition, divine runic symbols could even be used in battle. For instance, Torch River and Kaifeng had both used divine runic symbols to create barriers. They could have even formed offensive fireballs, wind blades, ice arrows, and so forth. The divine runic symbols produced by a grandmaster could even be used multiple times as long as one poured enough true essence into them. The divine runic arts were extremely broad in their use. This was because they were the manifestation of the Azura heavenly Tao laws. Xiana, I must close up for a period of time to practice my divine runic arts and alchemy. Let's return to Divine Runic City first. After Lin Ming killed the 3 divine runic masters, he had also obtained their spatial rings. These divine runic masters were considerably wealthy to begin with, and this was especially true for Kaifeng. He had accumulated a great deal of wealth through his religion. Origin energy runes were useful, but the most important thing was that these spatial rings held a massive amount of alchemy materials and divine runic arts materials. These materials were perfectly suited for Lin Ming to practice. However, the grade of these materials was a bit high for the current Lin Ming. Lin Ming had to start practicing with the most basic of materials before he advanced, and these materials were easily found in the bustling divine rune city. Lin Ming controlled Primordius' heavenly palace to immediately fly back to Divine Rune City. Divine Rune City had markets that were dedicated to selling divine runic arts materials. But, if one wished to purchase a massive amount of divine runic arts and alchemy materials, the Divine Runic Masters Guild was the most convenient place to do so. If one was a Divine Runic Master that was registered to the Divine Runic Masters Guild, then they could receive a 10% discount. However, Lin Ming wasn't registered. As Lin Ming was purchasing materials at the Divine Runic Masters Guild, he pulled out a long list of materials he needed and then bumped into someone he had met before. A fat old man in white robes with black patterns rounded the corner, wearing a strange 8-cornered hat. Ah! Lin Ming's expression stiffened and he subconsciously turned away. However, the old man had caught sight of him. The old man had extremely good memory and was able to instantly recognize Lin Ming. This old man was the Spiritor's Divine Runic Master vendor who had sold Lin Ming the broken jade during the first time he had come to the Divine Runic Masters Guild. The Spiritor's vendor was extremely knowledgeable and shrewd, someone that could squeeze oil from sand. But he had still been robbed blind by Lin Ming. That broken jade was far too special. Besides Lin Ming himself, no one would have been able to recognize it. As Lin Ming saw this old man, he was a bit suspicious. This old geezer, he shouldn't have noticed something strange afterwards, right? The truth was that the transaction had already been completed, and even if the old man regretted it, there was nothing he could do. Moreover, Lin Ming was strong in his own right and didn't fear this old man. "Oh, it's you." The Spiritor's old man smiled at Lin Ming. From his expression, Lin Ming couldn't tell whether or not he had regretted selling that broken jade. "So it's senior, this is such a coincidence." Lin Ming hollowly laughed, pretending he had just seen this old man. "Are you buying materials?" The Spiritor's old man glanced at the list in Lin Ming's hand. He could make out the massive amount of low-level materials. These were things that only low-level inscription masters, apprentice divine runic masters, and low-level alchemists would use. Normally, when one first started out as a divine runic master, inscription master, or alchemist, they would buy these materials to practice. Of course, these materials were all relatively expensive, and without certain finances, it was impossible to afford them. The materials on Lin Ming's list alone were worth several 100 million origin energy runes. Although many of these materials were used by novices, they were still considerably expensive. They weren't something that an ordinary divine runic arts apprentice would use. But Lin Ming didn't care about this. What he cared about the most was their effects in helping him practice, and whether or not they could help him quickly raise his skill in divine runic arts and alchemy. Price was a secondary consideration. The Spiritor's old man thoughtfully traced his chin. Then, he recalled the words that Lin Ming had said before, that he had wanted to become a divine runic master. The old man chuckled. "You want to study divine runic arts and alchemy? Commendable spirit, commendable." A strange color appeared on Lin Ming's face. No matter how he heard it, these words were clearly ironic. In particular, this Spiritor's old man was smiling so brightly that it appeared far too self-satisfied. Anyone who saw this would think his heart wasn't matching his words, and he was simply joking about. Chapter 1558, A Long-Lost Feeling. Chapter 1558, A Long-Lost Feeling. Lin Ming dryly coughed, saying, "Junior is only trying, but as for whether or not my dreams will succeed, that will depend on whether or not I have talent in this aspect." "Haha, you're quite optimistic. You seem to have just started learning the divine runic arts, or have you not even started yet?" The Spiritor's old man smiled, stroking his beard. "Millimeter," Lin Ming gloomily nodded. This old Spiritor's geezer who had drowned himself in the divine runic arts for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years was able to approximate whether someone had just started learning the divine runic arts. This was a thought completely based on his intuition. Moreover, when Lin Ming bought the broken jade, he hadn't even known about any of the materials that the old Spiritor's man was selling. If he said he was a divine runic apprentice or something like that, it would have been far too fake. Such perseverance. What wonderful perseverance. The old spiritus man praised yet again. Of course, this so-called praise was simply implying that Lin Ming was biting off more than he could chew, a daydreamer who fantasized too much. However, with the old man's smiling face that looked like a Buddha, an outsider simply wouldn't be able to clearly tell what his meaning was. Speaking of the divine runic arts, the materials you want to buy are quite luxurious. The old spiritus man took up the list of materials and sighed as he looked over it. Ah, how rich. For you to toss out so much money when you first start learning the divine runic arts, this is enough for 2 generations. You must have an Empyrean relative in your family. Lin Ming was at a loss for words. He simply didn't reply. I say, would you like me to take you in as an apprentice? The old spiritus man said, his eyes shining. Lin Ming was stunned. Was there really such a wonderful matter in this world? Although he didn't need anyone to teach him, a divine runic master was extremely cautious in accepting any disciples to begin with. If a 6th grade divine runic master said they were accepting an apprentice, there would be countless people stepping over each other to grab that position. Even being a mere secret disciple would be a great honor. Unfortunately, the higher rank a divine runic master was, the higher their standards in accepting an apprentice. Normally, a divine runic master would accept at most 4 or 5 disciples, and wanting to become one of these apprentices was easier said than done. Now, this old spiritus man actually said that he would take in Lin Ming as an apprentice. This left Lin Ming dumbfounded. Could this old geezer think that I have some talent in the divine runic arts, so he developed thoughts of taking me in as his apprentice? Lin Ming felt that if he studied the divine runic arts, even if he didn't have the heaven-defying abilities of the magic cube, his divine soul and perception were already considerably worthy of praise. But, to the spiritus, having a powerful divine soul and soul force was the most basic standard. This couldn't be considered Lin Ming's advantage. As Lin Ming was wondering just what was happening, the old spiritus man's next words nearly had Lin Ming choking on himself. As my apprentice, you would have to give me a similar amount of money every month. Of course, paying me in equivalent materials is even better. As the old spiritus man spoke, he put forth his hand and stretched out all 5 fingers. Lin Ming wanted to curse out loud. So this old man wanted to take him in as an apprentice so that he could collect tuition expenses. This wily old fox, I knew that he wouldn't be so kind. Xiao Moxian said with a true essence sound transmission. Lin Ming also bitterly smiled in response. It seems I overthought the situation. I was far too naive. Humph, this old man is so cheap. He probably isn't even willing to teach his own apprentice, so how could he possibly teach strangers? No matter how I look at it, any apprentice he takes in is unlucky. Xiao Moxian criticized. All divine runic masters had a high opinion of themselves and valued themselves, but even this was divided into degrees. She had a premonition that this old man valued his knowledge to the point of death. Seeing the old spiritus man's hand still floating in front of his face, Lin Ming was left helpless. He slowly asked, "You shouldn't be thinking of 500 million per month, right? You're being far too greedy, smart boy. If you're really the disciple of some great family, then you should be a bit bolder. These materials you bought already cost 500 million, but if I teach you, the effect will be much better." The old spiritus man spoke in deep and mysterious tones. He handed a booklet to Lin Ming and said, "This is something I wrote myself, The Secrets of Divine Runic Arts. Here, take a look, it's free." Lin Ming's lips twitched, but he took the booklet without any expectations. Could something free really be any good? However, looking at how thick this Secrets of Divine Runic Arts was, it couldn't be that everything inside was useless, right? Perhaps there might be some insignificant shred of useful content within it. Seeing Lin Ming accept the Secrets of Divine Runic Arts, the old spiritus man chuckled. "I think you'll change your mind in a few months. At that time, come back and look for me, haha. I must say, you are a human and your talent doesn't seem too outstanding to begin with. If it wasn't an open-minded and generous person like myself, an ordinary divine runic master simply wouldn't be willing to accept you. Luckily, you've met me." the old spiritus man said with a haughty air of superiority. Xiao Moxian couldn't bear listening to this anymore. Hey, just what are you saying? You have no idea what our talent is like. Hihi, I can guess it more or less. It's not like you know if I did or not. The old spiritus man traced his beard. Remember to look for me if you change your mind. My surname is Xue. Just look for Grandmaster Xue and you'll find me. In any case, you aren't short on money, are you? Lin Ming suddenly asked as he remembered this. He remembered that this old man had only been willing to barter. Well, I've had something come up recently, so I'm a bit tight on money. Moreover, although I said materials are the best, origin energy runes, 9 sun jades, I accept all forms of currency. Do you think there is anyone that dislikes having more money? The old spiritus man's eyebrow shot up as he spoke. He rubbed his fingers together in front of Lin Ming and then raised his fingers again for an amount of origin energy runes. This was truly more annoying the more one saw. Just as Xiao Moxian was unable to resist the impulse to slap him, she was pulled out of the hall by Lin Ming. They had already bought the materials they needed and there was no necessity to stay any longer. 500 million origin energy runes, the amount of materials that would buy could pile up into a mountain. In these past days, Lin Ming was really spending money like tossing out water. As more and more origin energy runes were spent without earning anything in return, Lin Ming's wealth continued to shrink with every passing day. Divine runic masters and alchemists were occupations where one used up money like they were burning it. The lowest level materials weren't cheap to begin with, and as one rose in the ranks, the materials would only become increasingly expensive. Although divine runic masters and alchemists were able to earn a great deal of money, they would always feel as if they lacked wealth. This sort of strange reverse phenomenon was especially reflected in the growth of divine runic masters. But, for those divine runic masters that had plateaued, they were relatively wealthier. This was because they were already past the time of spending money to practice, and unless there was some great project incoming, they normally wouldn't be short on money. We have to find some way to earn resources. When I start to pave the road to the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, the expenses will only increase, but I fear I'll be a poor man by then. As Lin Ming was thinking this, he and Xiao Moxian arrived at a divine runic master trading company. 2 guests, what would you like? A young girl welcomed Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian. I want to rent a room for alchemy and divine runic arts for 1 year. Normally, an alchemist or divine runic master would have their own specialized alchemy chamber or divine runic arts chamber. This place would have array formations that would increase the chances of succeeding in refining pills or drawing up divine runic symbols. Primordius Heavenly Palace didn't have these sorts of rooms, and if Lin Ming were to build them they would require far too much time and effort. In order to practice at this time, renting a room was the most suitable choice. May I inquire as to what grade of room sir would like? We have the best heaven symbol rooms, the slightly better earth symbol rooms and profound symbol rooms, or the ordinary flowing water rooms. The ordinary room is fine, Lin Ming casually said. He didn't lack money in renting out a better room, but as someone that was just starting out he didn't want to depend too much on external factors. The worse the environment was, the more he would be able to practice his techniques. Very well. Guests, please come with me. The young girl brought Lin Ming to a plain stone chamber. This stone chamber was a square room around 30 to 40 feet wide and long. There were several simple array formations inside that were used to increase the intensity of flames and increase a martial artist's perception. At the center was also a simple alchemy furnace as well as a blue stone divine runic table. Here, Lin Ming planned to spend an entire year. Although it was possible to use a time enchantment to absorb the memories of divine runic masters, he couldn't practice divine runic arts or alchemy within one. This was because the divine runic arts and alchemy required one to communicate with the laws of the outside world, and a time enchantment twisted the laws within it. Lin Ming didn't immediately start practicing alchemy or the divine runic arts. Rather, he pulled out the secrets of divine runic arts that old man Xue had given him. After all, this thick booklet should have something interesting in it. Moreover, old man Xue himself was a respectable person with his own reputation to worry about. No matter how stingy he was, He shouldn't write a worthless book with no value at all to ruin his reputation, right? Thinking this, Lin Ming opened the secrets of divine runic arts and began skimming through it. But he quickly discovered that he had been far too naive yet again. He had seriously overestimated the moral nature of this old man Shui. The beginning of this secrets of divine runic arts indeed contained some practical knowledge and skills. But, at the most critical parts, it was entirely blank. Then, this old man Shui would start writing again about entirely different skills and knowledge. But, as one approached the crucial point, it would become blank once more. This repeated again and again without a single piece of real information offered. The entire booklet was simply to stir one's appetite for more. After Lin Ming closed the booklet, he couldn't help but curse, "Shit, I've never seen such garbage, this is ridiculous. This old geezer is far too greedy. Wanting to gain the slightest advantage from him is like grabbing feathers from a flying goose, it's more difficult than ascending to heaven." Xiao Moxian could have been said to have opened her eyes. "He's already determined that I cannot learn the divine runic arts, so he wants me to give him money. But, it seems he really is short on money currently. I have no idea what he is doing, or perhaps he's always looking for profits to begin with." Lin Ming shook his head, no longer thinking about it. He took out the divine runic pen from the bluestone divine runic table and then poured his origin energy into it. In that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt for a long time. This sort of feeling was extremely familiar to Lin Ming, it even touched him a little. After so many years he had finally picked up the inscription arts that he had left behind so long ago. The days when Lin Ming was an inscription master were one of the most important sections of his road of martial arts. The inscription technique had been with him through these most difficult years when he first started learning martial arts. He was even glad that because of the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, he could pick up the inscription technique he had put down. This sort of feeling was similar to recalling the times of his youth. During those years, Lin Ming completed the most important transformation of his life. It was a time that he would never be able to forget. Chapter 1559, A Spring Rain. Chapter 1559, A Spring Rain. When Lin Ming was in the lower realms, he had been experienced with inscription technique for a long time, he had even dabbled in alchemy. Now, attempting the divine runic arts wasn't strange at all. He took out a material called a blue tongue orchid and slowly brought it floating up using his soul force. Then, he proceeded to extract the juice from it. Just this small step wasn't easy at all. Because someone new to the divine runic arts would have difficulty controlling the release and pressure of their soul force, they would often have to try this step hundreds of times before having a single success. And every failure was equal to throwing away a considerable amount of wealth. When a martial artist first learned the divine runic arts, it was the same as burning away a ton of money. In the past, when Lin Ming was in the lower realms and studying inscription technique, in order to save money he hadn't practiced using materials at the start, but had instead used his true essence to replace materials in drawing up the symbols. Of course, this sort of practice method was very limited in its speed. Fortunately, Lin Ming was much richer now, so he didn't have to save in such a fashion. Lin Ming focused his attention, directing a tiny bit of soul force into the blue tongue orchid to extract the juice from within it. At this time, a deep memory swelled forth from within him. This familiar feeling showed Lin Ming just how to use his soul force. Of the 3 divine runic masters that Lin Ming had killed, no matter which one it was, they had completed this simple step millions of times already and were incomparably familiar with the process. Thus, even though their spirit mark had been erased, this familiar feeling had lingered on in their ownerless memories, allowing Lin Ming to understand how to control the potency of his soul force from the start. This sort of feeling seemed as if it came naturally to him. Kaila. The blue tongue orchid juice was dragged out by Lin Ming's soul force, forming all sorts of shapes in the air. From just this refined controlling ability alone, if Old Man Shui had seen this, he definitely wouldn't believe that Lin Ming was a novice to the divine runic arts. Lin Ming quickly picked up the divine runic pen and placed the pen tip into the drop of juice. As the pen tip filled with juice, Lin Ming moved his hands and rapidly drew a small rune in the air. Although this rune was quickly drawn, If one didn't pay careful attention, they wouldn't even have thought that Lin Ming had drawn it. The small rune trembled in the air before stabilizing. This small rune was only the size of a grain of rice. However, the moment that Lin Ming completed drawing up this rune, he shook his head. The truth was that he had failed in the drawing process. I've used too much soul force. There are at least 7 or 8 flaws in this rune. Even though this was a tiny rune, wanting to draw it perfectly wasn't easy at all. Under the guidance of the 3 divine runic masters' memories, Lin Ming was well aware of just where he messed up and also how to fix his mistakes. The reason he had failed was because his soul force wasn't able to completely align with his motions. As long as Lin Ming continued to endlessly practice and slowly gain more and more skill, his body would gradually remember this feeling. Compared to Lin Ming, other divine runic master apprentices would not have such treatment. Many times, they would have no idea where they had gone wrong and they would have to constantly consult with their master. But, their master likely had their own work to do and it was impossible for them to guide their apprentices around all day, personally teaching them hands-on. If they were consulted too much, anyone would become annoyed. At this time, the apprentice would have to look to his own perception. If their perception was good, then they could slowly look through their past experiences and find out where their mistakes had been. If their perception was poor, then that simply meant they weren't fit to be a divine runic master. Lin Ming tried again and again, always drawing up the same rune. If he could successfully draw up this rune, then he would be far more proficient in drawing it up the second time. It wouldn't be as difficult as when he first attempted it. Moreover, in the structure of these tiny runes, because of the differences in the processing of energy, the power of one's soul force, and whether one was skilled in harmonizing their movements, this would lead to differences of quality even in the same small rune. Between different divine runic masters there would be tremendous differences in the quality of the same rune. A grandmaster's rune would have effects several times better than that of a divine runic apprentice. But, a complete divine runic symbol was composed of tens of thousands of these small runes. If every small rune was several times better, then once these differences accumulated, then the overall effects of the divine runic symbol would be the difference between night and day. Even though it was the same divine runic symbol, the divine runic symbol produced by an apprentice could just barely be used. But, the divine runic symbol of a grandmaster would sell for a considerable price at an auction. What Lin Ming needed to do now was strive for excellence and build a solid foundation, drawing up every rune as perfectly as he could. Lin Ming wasn't satisfied with becoming a normal divine runic master. He wanted to become a grandmaster. Only then would he be able to build the foundation for practicing the 9 stars of the Tao Palace. Even through repeated failures, Lin Ming kept his calm and patience. He tried again and again, using up a massive amount of materials, but even so, he didn't care for this loss. If an ordinary divine runic apprentice were to practice like Lin Ming, then they would have already overdrawn their soul force. However, Lin Ming's soul force was extremely formidable to begin with, and with him having cultivated the divine mist heart mantra, he far surpassed most spiriters. Even through these continuous defeats, Lin Ming could still trudge on. Of course, such perseverance wasn't without limits. After Lin Ming practiced for a full night and day, he felt as if his head would split apart. The divine runic symbols that he drew continued to have mistakes, and after every one, Lin Ming felt as if he wouldn't be able to last much longer. After finishing drawing up the last rune, Lin Ming felt a dizziness in his mind. He slumped over on a stone bed, his body worn out and aching. Peng! With a light cracking sound, the group of divine runic symbols floating in front of Lin Ming exploded in midair, turning into brilliant fireworks before they vanished. As Lin Ming overdrew the strength of his divine soul, these divine runic symbols were unable to maintain their form. They were naturally destroyed without Lin Ming's support. Lin Ming didn't feel this was a loss at all. Although he had successfully drawn up these runes, they weren't perfect. Lin Ming, are you all right? Xiao Moxian asked with concern as she saw Lin Ming's pale face. After they entered this stone chamber, Lin Ming had fully invested himself in drawing up divine runic symbols. He hadn't noticed what Xiao Moxian had been doing during this time. I'm fine. I'll feel better once I rest a little. Lin Ming rubbed his temples. Then, he discovered that Xiao Moxian was holding onto a pink jade slip. It was obvious that while Lin Ming had been practicing the divine runic arts, Xiao Moxian had been looking at this jade slip. That is heavenly extreme bliss. Lin Ming froze for a moment before coming to this conclusion. This heavenly extreme bliss jade slip was the dual cultivation transcendent divine might that he had obtained from Torch River. Yes, I've been looking over this in the last day. Xiao Moxian devilishly smiled. Although she wasn't embarrassed, a faint sunny glow still filled her face, making her seem infinitely charming. If one went into seclusion alone, that was truly a lonely and boring life. In particular, when martial artists closed up, they would often do so for dozens of years. To stay in a stone chamber for dozens of years by oneself, a normal person would definitely fall into madness. Even if a martial artist had a firm mind and will, they would still feel exhausted and weary after dozens of years of loneliness. But dual cultivating was different. Not only would one cultivate even faster, but the process was extremely enjoyable to begin with. Thus many martial artists happily practiced dual cultivation together, experiencing ultimate bliss even as they raised their cultivations and broke through boundaries. However, although this method seemed wonderful, it was actually quite difficult. Wanting to find a dual cultivation transcendent divine might like heavenly extreme bliss that was created by a husband and wife Empyrean couple was extremely problematic. And, even if one had a top dual cultivation method, finding a suitable partner wasn't easy either. In order to dual cultivate, one needed mutual feelings and also a spiritual harmony between the man and woman. Only like this would the body and soul fuse together during dual cultivation, joining together the life force fields. This sort of wonderful state could not be forced. Without an emotional foundation between two partners, the effects of dual cultivation would be extremely limited. Not just that, but dual cultivation also had requirements in the bloodline, foundation, and talent of both partners. If one were to dual cultivate with a mortal woman or a female martial artist with a sloppy foundation, there would be little to no effect at all. The only result would be giving vent to one's sexual feelings and wasting one's essence energy. Even for Torch River, he gradually lost all value as he approached the end of his lifespan. One could even say that he was extremely poor in this aspect. When he chose a young girl, he only chose those with talent to brutalize in order to make up for his losses. However, Torch River was unable to force these women to feel anything for him, thus he could only use the most savage and least effective method of raping these women until he sucked up all of their primordial yin. To use this method with heavenly extreme bliss, this was truly a waste of a treasure. In comparison, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian could be called the best partners for each other. Not only did they have feelings for each other, but each of them had an extremely high level of talent, a solid foundation, and an extraordinary bloodline. Moreover, their two blood energies were in yin-yang harmony, a dragon and phoenix rejoicing together. It was like they were a pair of lovers deliberately created by the heavens. What have you practiced from that heavenly extreme bliss? Lin Ming coughed, unable to help asking. Even so, a feeling of gradual anticipation crept over him. Between him and Xiao Moxian, their life forces attracted each other, and when they were together, it wasn't just the physical sensation of their bodies together, but a spiritual melding. This was the so-called spiritual bond that some people felt, and it was truly wonderful. I've only practiced to the threshold of the first level. Even so, I want to try it with you. As Xiao Moxian spoke, she pushed Lin Ming down on the bed. Like this, the two made love to their heart's content, the spring beauty endlessly glorious. In this process, Lin Ming could also feel the energy and bloodline within him communicating with Xiao Moxian in a very strange way, their yin-yang energies harmonizing with each other and becoming increasingly powerful. It was clear that this strange connection was the laws of the heavenly extremely bliss. Chapter 1560, Leaving Seclusion. Chapter 1560, Leaving Seclusion. Compared to not having a transcendent divine might rank dual cultivation method, if Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian were to try dual cultivating themselves, the effects and speed would naturally be very different. Heavenly extreme bliss focused on training and recuperation. There was absorbing yang to restore yin and absorbing yin to restore yang. Both of these were greatly beneficial to both the man and woman. As for the third focus, that was the essence of heavenly extreme bliss. In short, the main role of heavenly extreme bliss was to consolidate one's foundation and stabilize one's cultivation. The speed of training was terrifyingly fast, especially for geniuses like Xiao Moxian and Lin Ming. But, if one looked at these and thought that heavenly extreme bliss was not too amazing in the aspect of direct combat, then they would be mistaken. Heavenly extreme bliss had offensive martial skills, but these abilities required the man and woman to work in unison in order to display their true striking power. And upon using them, the effects wouldn't be as simple as 1+1. Thus in the past, although this husband and wife Empyrean couple were only middle to upper rank Empyreans, when they joined forces they were able to contend with a peak Empyrean. This allowed them to have a nearly unparalleled status within the Azura Road. After dual cultivating with Xiao Moxian for several hours, Lin Ming's originally overdrawn soul force had faintly returned. And during this dual cultivation process, it was Xiao Moxian helping Lin Ming. Lin Ming had barely moved at all. This was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. This was also reasonable. Although Lin Ming had inherited Torchriver's memories, he hadn't practiced heavenly extreme bliss after all. If he were to try using it, then he would inevitably find it a bit strange and unfamiliar. Slowly, Lin Ming felt his soul force recover by a great deal as he came into perfect harmony with Xiao Moxian. After their repeated rounds of lovemaking, Lin Ming became increasingly radiant, with a significant upturn in the energy circulating through his body. Lin Ming even felt himself becoming increasingly close to reaching the Middle Divine Lord realm. When Lin Ming had broken through to the 9 stars of the Dao Palace, his cultivation had risen straight to the peak of the early Divine Lord realm. Now, he was confident that with several more years of training he would be able to make another breakthrough. If so, then before Lin Ming was 60 years of age he would be able to break into the Middle Divine Lord realm. This was a truly incredible achievement. As for Xiao Moxian, her cultivation speed far surpassed Lin Ming's. Xiao Moxian was several years younger than Lin Ming to begin with, and after completing her first Phoenix Nirvana she had also reached the peak early Divine Lord realm. She might even break into the Middle Divine Lord realm before Lin Ming. This cultivation method has even better effects than I imagined. Sitting up on Lin Ming's body, Xiao Moxian dripped with fragrant drops of sweat, still immersed in the blissful pleasure of love. Not only were her cheeks red but her body glowed with jade perfection as if she had been soaking in a hot spring for a long time. She seemed so soft and flushed that one could even pinch out water from her skin. This is indeed wonderful. It is rare to find a complete transcendent divine might to begin with, but this dual cultivation method transcendent divine might can only be created by a husband and wife Empyrean. It's impossible for a single Empyrean to create something like this. Lin Ming had many top cultivation methods, even ones that surpassed the rank of a transcendent divine might. For instance, the Azura Sutra was one such cultivation method, and even the divine seal art was faintly superior to a transcendent divine might. However, these two cultivation methods were extremely incomplete. Although he could use a part of their strength, wanting to cultivate from the beginning and raise his foundation to make breakthroughs with these cultivation methods was extremely difficult. In this aspect, heavenly extreme bliss was able to show its true advantages. From the start, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian could feel each other's origin energy surging just by holding hands. And now, with the two making love, the effects of this were naturally unparalleled. After dual cultivating with Xiao Moxian, Lin Ming felt his state of mind be much improved. Thus, he began to tirelessly practice the divine runic arts once again. After another period of time, as Lin Ming was drawing up another divine runic symbol, he felt the proficiency of his skill had clearly increased to another level. Closing his eyes, all sorts of finger movements flashed through his mind. These finger movements originated from the ownerless soul fragment memories and were as natural to Lin Ming as if they were his own. Grasping the divine runic pen, Lin Ming began to draw up another divine runic symbol. The divine runic pen was filled with the juice of materials. One by one, gorgeous runes were formed beneath Lin Ming's hand. At the start, Lin Ming would successfully draw one complete rune every 7 or 8 tries, but now he could succeed after 2 or 3 tries. Each time there was a mistake, Lin Ming would reference the memories of the 3 divine runic masters to find out where he had gone wrong. This sort of analytic ability far surpassed anything an ordinary divine runic apprentice could hope to achieve. Slowly, Lin Ming corrected his mistakes. Rune after tiny rune was drawn up by Lin Ming, whereupon they floated in the air. All sorts of rare and precious materials were turned into runes or wasted in Lin Ming's hands. Lin Ming didn't care about what results he achieved with these divine runic symbols, all he cared about was the process. By repeating these processes again and again, Lin Ming steadily advanced his skill in the divine runic arts. 10th day. With a forehead coated in sweat, Lin Ming drew up one last rune. In that moment, 1,000 floating runes shimmered in the sky, fusing together beneath a strange halo of light. Finally, these runes formed a complete divine rune that floated in the air. Lin Ming's expression was one of complete focus. He took out a god rune of the Azura Road's heavenly Tao from his spatial ring. Then, by fusing this god rune with the divine rune he drew up, Lin Ming had produced his first divine runic symbol. Judging by Lin Ming's memories, this divine runic symbol had many imperfections. It could be called very rough or even useless. But this was still the first divine runic symbol that Lin Ming had created. In the future, as his skill continued to rise, the effects of the divine runic symbols he created would have better and better effects. In fact, Lin Ming could even change and improve the structure of divine runic symbols through his own understanding of the divine runic arts. Training passed without sense of time. Days passed, one after the other. Lin Ming continued to practice drawing divine runic symbols every day, and after his soul force was overdrawn he would dual cultivate with Xiao Moxian. Like this, a year passed. During this year, Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian's cultivation became increasingly close to the Middle Divine Lord realm. At the same time, Lin Ming's skill in drawing up low-level divine runic symbols had reached near perfection. He had thoroughly fused the memories of the 3 divine runic masters into his own divine runic arts. Now, what Lin Ming needed to do was to go to the Divine Runic Masters Guild and undergo the test for becoming a Divine Runic Master. At the same time, he had to find a chance to approach the assassin organization Heaven's Net and come into contact with Blood Moon, so he could obtain the 9 stars of the Tao Palace portion of the Celestial Tyrant Manual. As long as Lin Ming had a suitable cultivation method, then his cultivation would rise. With enough strength, he would be able to firmly stand tall in the upcoming Great Calamity. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.